Chapter 388. Long Yunjian used one hand to wipe his hair, which was drenched in sweat, as he held a handful of hair in his hand, as the remaining hair fell onto his bare shoulders. The man's figure was tall and well-built with distinct muscles. Sweat flowed along that fair skin as it dripped down. When Long Yunjian saw Yiqing Luo outside the door, his entire body stiffened as he stood stunned on the spot. Yiqing Luo had not expected that the minute Long Yunjian advanced, she would be able to see such a feast for the eyes. Hence, the scene seemed to have frozen at this scene, for pairs of eyes met as they looked at each other. After a long while, Long Yunjian's handsome face seemed as though it was on fire as he hugged his chest, and like a rabbit, he scuttled into the wooden house. That wooden door was slammed down with great force as it shook several times in the air. A loud bam sound made Yiqing Luo slightly dazed. Why did this scene look like she had played a rogue and molested Long Yunjian? After another long while, Yiqing Luo's legs were numb from standing, but there was no sound from the wooden house at all. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly as she walked over directly. Just as she was about to push the door open, she heard Long Yunjian's anxious shout from inside. "Don't come in." Yiqing Luo's hand froze as her brows creased further. She pretended as though she hadn't heard Long Yunjian's voice as she directly pushed open the wooden door and walked in. She saw Long Yunjian sitting on the bed with his back facing her as the blue long robe was wrapped tightly around his body. When he heard the footsteps, his broad back actually trembled a little. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched. Didn't he look like a good young man who had been teased? She walked over, but before she got close to the bed, Long Yunjian shrank into the wooden bed. "Don't come over." Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes as she walked over in big steps in a bad mood. Just as Long Yunjian was about to get up and escape, she stretched out her hand and grabbed his collar. The lady's slender and fair fingers were like jade, without a single speck of dust. But her strength was shockingly huge, and no matter how Long Yunjian struggled, he was unable to break free. "You're not a lady. Why are you trying to be so secretive? I've seen more men than you've eaten. I haven't even blushed, so why are you so shy?" Seeing Long Yunjian's flushed red face, Yiqing Luo felt even more speechless. In the 21st century, when she went to the seaside overseas, she had seen many naked men, not to mention how many shirtless men she had seen. Although Long Yunjian's figure was great, it was a feast for the eyes. But it wasn't to the extent where her eyes would light up and she would do anything to him, right? Moreover, in terms of figure, DMO Xian's figure was even better. And as long as she opened her mouth, DMO Xian would definitely take it off without a second word. She didn't know what Long Yunjian was shy about. As though he was shocked by Yiqing Luo's bold and unrestrained words, Long Yunjian's pair of azure blue eyes suddenly widened as his flushed red face, without any trace of his usual aloofness. You've seen a lot." He couldn't bring himself to ask, so he kept in his mouth and kept repeating the same word. Yiqing Luo simply covered his mouth. "Yes, I've seen a lot. Basically, I've seen all kinds of men, even those who are asterisk, 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 asterisk. Don't worry, I'm not so deranged that I can't control myself when I see your upper body naked, to the extent of pressing you down directly." A series of words were spat out from Yiqing Luo's mouth. Saying that, Yiqing Luo loosened Long Yunjian's collar and casually pushed him. Long Yunjian fell onto the bed, as he laid there in a daze, maintaining the fallen position, as he unbelievably repeated Yiqing Luo's words in his mind. These words, even those dissolute young masters might not be able to say in front of others without any restraint. Chapter 389. Seen all kinds of men? You've even seen Quan? And he's crazy enough to not be able to hold himself down? Were these really the words of a woman? What? Do you still have any questions? Seeing that Long Yunjian was still in a daze and did not respond, she frowned. Long Yunjian climbed up in a daze as he stared blankly at Yiqing Luo, and, after some time, he stuttered as he shook his head no. Saying that, he subconsciously lowered his eyelids, not daring to look at Yiqing Luo's bewitching eyes. Earlier, when he was in a daze, he seemed to have seen Yiqing Luo. She recognized him as the blue dragon and even guided him in his advancement. That moaning sound, as well as the warm touch on his forehead, were so real. Long Yunjian almost thought that Yiqing Luo had really come to his secret place. But when he opened his eyes, the wooden house was obviously empty, with no sign of Yiqing Luo. This was his secret place, and he had never brought Yiqing Luo here before. So, how could Yiqing Luo possibly appear here? Another dream. This wasn't his first time dreaming of Yiqing Luo. After meeting Yiqing Luo, he had dreamt of her twice. However, in the dream, she looked even more heroic. She held a long sword in her hand and wore a red battle robe. After his advancement, he was covered in sweat. He took off his shirt and prepared to wash it in the pool. But he had not expected Yiqing Luo to be outside. With a paw sound, Yiqing Luo bent her fingers and tapped lightly on Long Yunjian's head. Stop letting your imagination run wild. Since you've already advanced, tell me everything properly. Long Yunjian was in pain as he regained his senses and shot his gaze back onto Yiqing Luo's face. Recalling Yiqing Luo's earlier sentence of, not to the extent of pressing him down, his mood turned downcast. Long Yunjian frowned. Could it be that he was too hasty in his advancement this time, and it affected his body? Why do I keep feeling my heartbeat speeding up and heavy from time to time? You're a dragon? Yiqing Luo searched through her mind, but had never heard of a dragon that could transform into a human in the Nirvana realm. Among the beasts, dragons were the leaders of the beasts and represented an incomparably noble status. Dragons were extremely rare in the Nirvana realm. There were only 3 known dragons in the entire Nirvana realm. Even if it was DMO Xian, he might not be able to subdue a dragon as his own war pet. Furthermore, dragons were extremely difficult to reproduce and grow. It would take at least 10,000 years to become an adult dragon, not to mention cultivating into a human form. Yes, Long Yunjian did not try to hide anything. His eyelashes fluttered. I didn't know I was a dragon before I met Chi-Chi. You don't know I'm a dragon? No wonder his expression was so strange when he was talking to Chi-Chi. Perhaps Chi-Chi had sensed the dragon aura on Long Yunjian and told him the truth. I don't know anything about my past. Long Yunjian's eyes were filled with bewilderment. His azure blue pupils were like ripples lingering on water. Ever since I can remember, I've been in this heavenly academy, and the director sent me to the devil class. Yiqing Luo was shocked. You mean, you lost your memory? Did you lose your memory after coming to the academy? Or was it the director who sent Long Yunjian to the devil class? If Long Yunjian was a dragon in human form, then his own ability was absolutely not bad. Otherwise, Long Yunjian would not have come to the devil class and even turned these trash into geniuses. Chapter 390. He wasn't a waste, but he was sent to devil class. Especially this person was the director. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but suspect that Long Yunjian's amnesia might have something to do with the director. Other than my name, other than devil class, I don't remember anyone or anything. Long Yunjian shook his head slowly as his face revealed a painful expression. A person without any memories of the past. Towards everything in the past, it was a blank slate. How fearful and helpless must one be in life? Yiqing Luo's brows softened a little as she sighed softly. Do you remember why you came to devil class? Because of my pair of eyes. Long Yunjian suddenly raised his eyes. His azure blue eyes were like a ravaged gem, sparkling with a clear luster. Yiqing Luo's fingertip was just about to touch it when Long Yunjian's face flushed red as he retreated backwards. You're the first person to praise my beautiful eyes. He raised his hand and touched his eyes as his lips curled into a bitter smile. Because of this pair of eyes of mine, the students all say that I'm a monster. The students from the other classes have always bullied me, so the director sent me to devil class. At this point, he chuckled again. Only this time, his smile revealed a relaxed tone. Devil class's students will not despise my eyes, nor will they treat me as a different species. So, you train these students to become strong, so that they don't need to look at other people's strange gazes? Yes and no. Long Yunjian nodded his head, but immediately shook his head. The original intention of helping them, maybe it's because these people's goodwill towards me, infected me, and training them, is because I want to find back my own memories. Based on one's own strength, in this unfamiliar place where he had no memories, there was no way he could survive for long. Not to mention searching for his own memories. He could only make himself stronger to make his own team stronger. Only then would they be able to survive in this world where the strong preyed on the weak and have the chance to find his own memories. These few years, I've been enduring silently until your arrival. At this point, Long Yunjian's blue eyes became misty. The moment I saw you, I had a strong premonition. Perhaps it's the sixth sense of a dragon, or perhaps it's Chi-Chi's sacred beast sense. I know that perhaps I can get the answer from you if I want to find out the truth. As expected, you had a holy beast, the white tiger of the four great holy beasts. The smile on Long Yunjian's face became a little gentler. She was used to his usual calmness and aloofness. Looking at that smile again, that warm smile, Yiqing Luo was in a daze for a moment. Chi-Chi recognized me. It smelled the scent of the dragon clan on me. As Long Yunjian spoke, his voice gradually became excited. Chi-Chi said that I'm a beast just like him. It's just that our levels are different. It is one of the high and mighty ancient sacred beasts, and I am a human dragon of the upper realm. Human dragon? Yiqing Luo's eyes widened. Human dragon? She had never heard this pronoun before. Moreover, the upper realm? What is the upper realm? Yiqing Luo didn't know much. Once, Shiju's mother had mentioned about the upper realm. That was the 3 realms above Nirvana realm. It was rumored that only those who became the strongest in Nirvana realm would be sent to the upper realm in order to maintain the peace of Nirvana realm. To put it simply, it was to become the strongest in Nirvana realm, stepping into the sky mystic supremacy, which was the legendary level of virtuous mystic, spirit mystic. Then they would be led into the upper realm by the envoys from the upper realm. Chapter 391. So when she mentioned the upper realm, Yiqing Luo's mouth turned into an O shape. Chi-Chi said, the human dragon's position in the dragon clan is second only to one of the 4 ancient sacred beasts, Azure Dragon. Long Yunjian saw that she understood what kind of place the upper realm was and directly chose the human dragon to explain. It's already difficult for other high-level mirage beasts to cultivate into a human, and it's even more difficult for the dragon clan. Our human dragon clan, every dragon can transform into a human, but the price to pay is too high. Because of this, there aren't many dragons in the human dragon clan. At its most prosperous time, there were only 300 over dragons, and gradually, there were only 100 over dragons left. After that, in a great battle in the upper realm, the human dragon clan was exterminated, and I may be the human dragon who escaped from the upper realm during the battle. These were all Chi-Chi's remarks and guesses. Long Yunjian lowered his eyelids. Actually, I still can't believe it, and haven't figured out the cause and effect of this matter. Ever since he could remember, his wish was to find out his origins, to regain his memories. But now, knowing his own origins, Long Yunjian didn't feel any joy at all. He wasn't human, so he had a pair of different eyes. Moreover, the identity of a human dragon was too heavy. In the great battle in the upper realm, the human dragon clan was exterminated, which meant that he was shouldering the blood feud of the human dragon clan. Everything that he knew was pressing on him one by one. After knowing all these, Long Yunjian wanted to tell Yiqing Luo. Because Yiqing Luo was Chi-Chi's master, she would definitely be able to give him an answer on what to do. But every time he saw Yiqing Luo, he didn't know where to start. He wasn't human, but a dragon. This sentence, he couldn't say it out. Was he afraid that after Yiqing Luo knew all these, she would despise him for being a monster? Or was he afraid that Yiqing Luo would also use that strange gaze to look at him? Long Yunjian couldn't explain clearly what kind of feeling this was. Are you resisting your identity as a human dragon, or resisting the blood feud of the human dragon clan? The lady's clear voice, light and pleasant, spitting out every word extremely clearly. A soft little hand rested on his shoulder. Long Yunjan was stunned. The little hand on his shoulder was very warm, so warm that it seemed to seep through his clothes and heat up his skin. Long Yunjan's heart uncontrollably sped up again. This kind of inexplicable feeling made Long Yunjan feel vexed as he wanted to push Yi Qing Luo's hand away, but he couldn't bear to. When he heard Yi Qing Luo revealing his thoughts in one sentence, he instantly had a flustered feeling as though his inner thoughts had been seen through. This kind of panic came out of nowhere. What did he have that he was afraid of Yi Qing Luo seeing through? If you reject the identity of a human dragon, you just need to live as a human. If you don't say anything, who will know? Yi Qing Luo's voice was indifferent, with a calming effect. Since you've chosen to live as a human, then this blood feud has nothing to do with you, right? Yi Qing Luo's tone was very serious and wasn't teasing. If others knew about Renlong's identity, it would definitely cause a huge uproar. Heaven chose to make you lose your memory, to let you stay in the devil class. So it might be heaven's will to let you start your life anew, as a human, live on. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled into a warm arc. The war in the upper realm was bound to be a huge war. Chapter 392. The path of revenge is too arduous and too dangerous. It's better to leave this life and leave you, the only human dragon bloodline. Perhaps, one day in the future, we will be able to head to the upper realm. When we have that kind of strength, if you wish, you can investigate everything about the human dragon clan and investigate your own companions. Yi Qing Luo's words were very light, but it contained a lot of power. Before we have enough strength, what we need to do is to live well, and fight for more possibilities. This was also Yi Qing Luo's way of survival. Losing her profound heart jade, she almost lost her life. If it wasn't for the fact that DMO Xian gave her a profound heart jade, she would have been killed in Three Springs sect. It was impossible to say that she didn't hate the person who dug away her profound heart jade. What belonged to her, she would always get it back. But before her strength reached the level where she could get her profound heart jade back, she would not act rashly. Having lived 2 lives, Yi Qing Luo knew patience the most. Live well and fight for more possibilities. If she lost her life, how could she talk about revenge? How could she talk about getting back what belonged to her? The world was big, but nothing was bigger than living well. Long Yunjan's pair of hazy eyes gradually brightened up. The azure blue waves were like circles of ripples. Thank you. Long Yunjan's eyes were filled with excitement. The thing that had been bothering him finally got the best answer. There's no need for thanks between brothers. Yi Qing Luo saw that he could understand, and her eyes were filled with a warm smile. Brother. Long Yunjan's eyes flashed, and his lips curled into a smile. Brother. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. Yi Qing Luo recalled that he had just advanced to the profound grade, that dazzling light. It really didn't look like an ordinary profound grade. Just now, what stage did you advance to? Earth Profound 9th grade. The 4 words were like lightning striking into Yi Qing Luo's eardrums. Yi Qing Luo's pupils suddenly widened. What? Earth Profound 9th grade? Looking at the entire Heavenly Academy, even including the Masters and Elders, how many people were above the Earth Profound 9th grade? The human dragon was worthy of being the only human dragon comparable to an ancient sacred beast. What the hell? Transforming into a human, this strength was also unbelievably strong. It's all thanks to you. I was previously stuck at the 7th grade of the Earth Profound realm and couldn't advance no matter what. If it wasn't for you guiding the dragon's power to fuse with my profound jade heart, I wouldn't have advanced 2 levels in a row. Just as Yi Qing Luo was filled with grief and indignation, Long Yunjan threw another explosive strike. One must know that when Yi Qing Luo broke through from Yellow Profound 9th grade to Mystic Profound, she had expended a huge amount of energy, and now she was unable to advance to Mystic Profound 4th grade and above. Not to mention the Earth Profound realm. If they wanted to advance a grade, some people would spend hundreds of years and still wouldn't be able to move their grade. Back then, she had thought that jumping from a yellow mystic 9th grade to the mystic 4th grade was already an extremely powerful talent. He didn't expect that there would be a person in the Earth Profound realm who had consecutively advanced 2 levels. Motherf asterisk Kerr. She didn't want to be brothers with Human Dragon anymore. It was too oppressive. However, Long Yunjian didn't realize how oppressive his words were. He had already stood up, and the expression on his face had reverted to his usual aloof self. This is a good place. The heaven and earth's spiritual chi is abundant. If you are free, come and sit here for a while. It will also help to advance your profound grade. Sit. You must sit. Ever since she knew that this was a treasured land, Yiqing Luo had no intention to let go of this treasured land. Chapter 393. That very day, Yiqing Luo stayed overnight in the treasure land. He had completely forgotten that demon of hers would wait for her in the dormitory every night. Moreover, she hadn't even solved the problem of the dormitory being destroyed by the assassin and Long Yunjian. The current Yiqing Luo was enjoying the comfortable feeling of the spiritual chi filling her limbs and bones, lingering around her profound heart jade. His main body was being nourished by the abundant spiritual energy, and his spiritual sense was being healed by the azure dew bracelet. It was very comfortable. On the second day, Yiqing Luo felt refreshed from head to toe after a night of replenishing her chi. She stood up and swallowed another medicinal pill that the ghost doctor had given her to treat her internal injuries. Borrowing the spiritual energy of this place, she allowed the medicinal effects to fuse into her bones and blood. Baiming Lu mentioned that she would be able to recover by 70 to 80% before the holidays. It was only the second day, and Yiqing Luo had already recovered by 70 to 80%. Now that she didn't need painkillers, she could still maintain a normal expression on her face. If he wanted to participate in the training, it was still a little forceful. When they arrived at the freshman training ground, Yiqing Luo wanted to discuss with the instructors to reduce the training for today. Unexpectedly, as soon as he arrived at the training ground, before he could even speak to the instructor, he was ordered to clean up the second floor of the library. They had just cleaned yesterday. What else was there to clean today? This was obviously deliberately making things difficult for Yiqing Luo, not allowing her to participate in the training. The freshmen looked at each other in dismay. Wasn't Yiqing Luo the person whom the cold-faced instructor admired the most? I heard that student Yi was assassinated by an assassin yesterday and even fainted at the scene. A sharp and mocking voice came from among the students. Shangwan Liuli covered her mouth and laughed. Her eyes filled with disdain and ridicule. What capabilities did Yiqing Luo have? He could only act arrogantly in front of freshmen like them. Wasn't he scared out of his wits the moment he encountered a killer? If he knew that Yiqing Luo was so useless, he would have used some money to find a high profound class student to pretend to be a killer to scare her. The freshmen naturally heard about this as well. Yesterday, the female dormitory had collapsed, and Yiqing Luo was carried to the director's office. This matter was too sensational, and the academy had no way of completely suppressing it. In their eyes, Yiqing Luo was the strong. Even if Yiqing Luo was allocated to the devil class, but her ability was seen by the freshmen. Unexpectedly, Yiqing Luo fainted from fright after meeting the killer. This was something that the students were unable to accept. Instructor Chu's face was cold, and his voice was cold. As a student under my training, you actually fainted in the face of an assassin. What a disgrace to my reputation. Now, scram to the library and reorganize the books that you organized yesterday. That was a reasonable excuse. Yiqing Luo understood in her heart as she lowered her eyelids and responded obediently. Instructor Ho's face was gloomy. His sharp eyes swept over Yiqing Luo. After a while, he put his hands behind his back, turned around, and walked towards the gate of the training field. When Yiqing Luo saw that, she immediately followed up. At this time, the sky was gray, and the freshmen had already gathered at the training ground. Occasionally, a few students would pass by. Instructor Ho leaned against the door, his eyes cold. I know you're not the type to faint. She didn't expect Instructor Ho to be explaining to her. Yiqing Luo was overwhelmed by the favor and shook her head. I know, you and Instructor Ho are thinking for my sake. Instructor Ho was silent for a moment. His cold gaze swept over her arm. Are you hurt? Yes. Yiqing Luo didn't hide it. How did you and Instructor Chu find out? Face expression. These two simple words were to answer Yiqing Luo, and at the same time, to warn her. If you really want to hide it, then you must hide your face and expression appropriately. Chapter 394. Yiqing Luo suddenly realized as she thought about it carefully. It was probably when Lu Xiaoyu was agitated and grabbed her arm and touched her wound, which made her unable to control herself as her expression changed slightly. She had not expected such a minute expression to be seen through by the instructor. Go to the library pavilion. Ghost Doctor is waiting for you there. When Yiqing Luo heard the two words Ghost Doctor, she went into a blank as she raised her head abruptly. Instructor knew Ghost Doctor? Wasn't it said that? Ghost Doctor had a bad temper and was a lone wolf? What greeted her was Instructor Ho's stern shout, still not going to scram. This shout made Yiqing Luo's mind go blank. Instructor Ho was too immersed in his role. Yiqing Luo facepalmed. The two cold and aloof instructors actually cooperated with her to put on a show. Yiqing Luo touched her deafened ears as she nodded and bowed, with her tail between her legs, as she left the freshman training grounds. Yiqing Luo took the punishment slip and went to look for the administrator to open the second floor's door for her. The administrator yawned as he climbed up and shot a strange gaze over. She came yesterday, and today she was punished to clean? He started to suspect if Yiqing Luo had used the excuse of cleaning to specially head up to the second floor to read the premium books. He even specially checked several times to see if this punishment slip was forged. But the punishment slip flickered several times on Instructor Ho's sensory stone. It was indeed the punishment order which Instructor Ho had given. The administrator had naturally heard of the legend of the cold-faced instructor and didn't dare to suspect anything as he immediately led Yiqing Luo up to the second floor. The books on the second floor were all swept clean by Qiao Jin and the others yesterday, neatly and tidily. Yiqing Luo was just putting on an act as she tidied up the books once again. It was until the administrator went down to the first floor full of suspicions when Yiqing Luo then walked towards the pill refining room vigilantly. The door of the pill refining room was half opened and not as tightly shut as yesterday. Her hand had just touched the door when her ears suddenly twitched. Her long and narrow eyes curled into a ridiculing cold arc. Her pink lips rose slightly as she hid the cold smile in her eyes as she directly pushed the door and walked in. After the door of the pill refining room was closed, a black figure appeared beside the bookshelf on the second floor. A pair of sharp eyes stared fixedly at the door of the medicine refining room. It was still early in the morning, and the library was not open yet. At this moment, the entire library was silent. He could vaguely hear the sound of porcelain bottles colliding in the refinement room. In order to confirm something, the black figure moved closer to the medicine refining room. At this moment, the woman in the refining room muttered, Juku spirit horn, Chinyalu, Ganoderma powder. These are the ingredients to refine the Juku spirit pill. This Tianyuan grass and viridescent spirit vine are the main ingredients for refining 7-star grass. It's used to treat external injuries. Soon after, the sound of herbs being pulled could be heard. The black shadow listened for a long time, only to hear a series of names and effects of the medicines. After about the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, the black figure was worried that the ghost doctor would come and catch him red-handed, so he quietly left the second level of the library pavilion. In the medicine refinement room, the woman who was leisurely dividing the herbs and muttering non-stop suddenly stopped and stopped muttering. She put down the herbs as her long and narrow arc eyes revealed a cold glint. She knew that director that old fox would absolutely not believe her words so easily. If he wasn't sure if she was really hiding in the pill refining room and had been taken in as Ghost Doctor's disciple, the director would definitely deal with her ruthlessly once again. Luckily, she was able to enter the pill refining room and ramble on about the herbs because she had the Ghost Doctor's permission. Chapter 395. Continue reading. Why don't you continue reading? Suddenly, the bookshelf gave off a loud noise, and behind the bookshelf, a hole was split open. Ghost Doctor walked out from the secret room with a cold expression. Yiqing Luo immediately stood up and greeted, "Senior Ghost Doctor, good morning. Just wanted to find a lass who knows about medicinal herbs and has some innate talent to help me tidy up this alchemy room, but I didn't expect to pick up such trouble." Ghost Doctor gave a cold harumph. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes as she looked down, not saying a word. She was able to discover that someone was guarding outside. For someone as powerful as Ghost Doctor, he would definitely discover that someone was spying on her. "I can't be bothered with your trivial matters, so don't drag this matter into the alchemy room. If you disturb my peace, then scram out." Yiqing Luo had heard that Ghost Doctor was only thinking about alchemy, and what he was most afraid of was trouble. Ghost Doctor's words were very clear. Regarding yesterday's matter, he wouldn't interfere and wouldn't bother about it, which meant that the only person who knew that she was locked in the secret room after eavesdropping on the conversation between the director and the guardian. Ghost Doctor wouldn't divulge any information about this. She immediately nodded. "I've remembered it." Ghost Doctor walked over directly, as he took out a few pills which were glowing and casually scattered them on the table. "Keep these pills. Have you finished reading the books which I asked you to read yesterday?" Yiqing Luo recalled that Ghost Doctor had thrown several books to her, and later on she was being pursued, and found out that Long Yunjian was a human dragon, so where would she find the time to read? She pursed her pink lips as she carefully picked up those pills and placed them into the tidied-up porcelain bottle, as she replied, "Yesterday in the secret room, I've already finished reading those 2 books. Don't think about improving." Ghost Doctor gave a disdainful snort as he flicked his sleeves and walked towards a secret room, sort out the medicinal herbs in the medicine cabinet, and paste the medicinal names on the cabinet. Saying that, he didn't look at Yiqing Luo's expression as he walked into the secret room. The secret room's entrance was tightly shut again. Yiqing Luo? Did he need to be so willful? This old man was even more willful than Guiyu. Yiqing Luo turned her head and took a look at the right side of the pill refining room, at those 2 huge medicinal cabinets. Adding them up, there were at least 400 to 500 drawers. Instantly, the wind became chaotic. As expected, no matter where he went, he couldn't escape the fate of tidying up. Yiqing Luo sighed softly as she deftly packed all the pills which Ghost Doctor had thrown on the table and placed them neatly on the medicine bottle rack. Only then did he walk to the medicine cabinet and pull open a drawer. The drawer was full of all kinds of medicinal herbs, piled up into a ball. At a glance, there were at least 7 or 8 different kinds of medicinal herbs. Even if he was afraid of trouble, he should at least put some thought into this matter related to medicine refinement, right? If these medicinal herbs countered each other and were placed together, wouldn't it be a waste of an entire tray of medicinal herbs? Could it be that whenever the Ghost Doctor needed a medicinal herb, she would directly take it from the medicine cabinet, and if she took the wrong one, she would casually throw it into a drawer? With the Ghost Doctor's personality, it seemed like she really would do that. The 2 tables that she had tidied up yesterday were in a mess again after she came out of the secret room. She could predict that in less than 3 days, the medicinal herbs in the drawer would be the same as today after she had painstakingly sorted them out. However, even if she knew this would happen, she still had to brace herself to organize the medicinal herbs. This would also help her to further understand the medicinal effects and shapes of the medicinal herbs. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath as she started to organize the medicinal herbs one by one. Luckily, she had read through 2 books on the foundation of medicinal pills in the secret room yesterday and learnt the ability to differentiate medicinal herbs from 100-pill refining. Chapter 396. Yiqing Luo's hands and feet were nimble and her brain was working at full speed. With a single glance, he was able to identify the messy pile of medicinal herbs in a drawer. She sorted these medicinal herbs one by one and then opened another drawer. Yiqing Luo's thoughts were all placed on tidying up the medicine cabinet. He didn't notice that the secret room behind him was slowly opening again. The ghost doctor was standing at the door, narrowing his eyes as he watched her tidy up the medicine cabinet. His hands and feet were very nimble, his reaction was not bad, and his memory was also very good. He could accurately identify any medicinal herbs that he had seen before and accurately put the same medicinal herbs together. The ghost doctor's expressionless face softened a little, and his gaze was no longer as impatient and cold as before. His foresight wasn't too bad after all. This little girl was a promising young lady. The ghost doctor was a medicine refiner who was crazy about refining pills and was extremely meticulous about everything related to refining pills. The reason why he accepted Yiqing Luo was because when Yiqing Luo helped him to tidy up the medicinal herbs on the table, he could tell that she had some innate talent in alchemy, which was why he was moved. He hated trouble and was too lazy to tidy up the refining room. Right now, the medicine refining room was already in a mess to the point where one could not bear to look straight at it. Coincidentally, Yiqing Luo barged in. Thus, he had the idea of finding a student who was pleasing to his eyes to help him tidy up the medicine refining room. From the looks of it, although this little girl was a little troublesome, she wasn't annoying. After tidying for about 2 hours, Yiqing Luo had just tidied up the first medicine cabinet. She rubbed her sore arms. Suddenly, a cold voice came from behind her. "All right, it's already noon. Go and eat. Don't be a hindrance here." Ghost Doctor stood expressionlessly behind her as he strode towards the table, not even taking a look at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo nodded. She hadn't had a single drop of water for the entire morning and had spent such a long time sorting out the medicinal herbs. She was so hungry that her chest was sticking to her back. "After you're done eating, scram back here to continue tidying up." Just as Yiqing Luo walked out of the pill refining room, Ghost Doctor called out coldly from behind. Yiqing Luo responded. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that the Ghost Doctor, who had seemed so terrifying and strange yesterday, wasn't so fierce after all. He hated trouble, but he cared about her health. Although his tone was a little fierce, the meaning behind his words was that he was thinking for her sake. Leaving the medicine refinement chamber, Zhang Xian arrived at the first floor of the Compendium Pavilion, where he met a group of people walking into the Compendium Pavilion. When the two of them faced each other, they both stopped. Their leader was Shangguan Lioli. Behind him were 5 girls. They should be the students from Intermediate Profound Class 2. How unlucky. The minute Shangguan Lioli saw Yiqing Luo, her originally smiling face instantly turned gloomy. The lady beside her, who was holding her arm, also had a face of disgust, trash that was allocated to the devil class. "What are you doing in the library pavilion? How many books can you read? How many words can you read?" The moment he said this, the other women around him covered their mouths and chuckled. "You don't know this, but this most outstanding student in our freshman training was ambushed by an assassin yesterday, and he fainted on the spot." Shangguan Lioli laughed coldly as she raised her voice. During today's training, the 2 instructors felt that she had lost face, so they punished her to the 2nd floor to organize the books. Naturally, the student had heard the news about the assassins. At this moment, the gazes which they shot towards Yiqing Luo were filled with ridicule and gloating over her misfortune. One must know that ever since Yiqing Luo entered the academy, she was an influential figure, the disciple whom the Overlord had personally acknowledged, the mysterious and unfathomable Guei Yu, the student whom everyone was fighting over, and had the guts to go against the faculty council, and so on, a series of matters. Chapter 397. However, the news of Yiqing Luo fainting from being frightened by the killers made the students not know whether to laugh or cry. Suddenly, they felt that it was reasonable for the academy to arrange Yiqing Luo into the devil class. It was noon, and there were quite a number of students who had just finished their lunch and came to the library pavilion to read. There was quite a lot of people. A few female students stood at the entrance, and the scene of them covering their mouths and laughing attracted the attention of the other students. The students who were passing by couldn't help but cast a puzzled gaze over. Yiqing Luo was so hungry that she was lying flat on the ground. The minute she recalled that ghost doctor asked her to hurry back, she totally couldn't be bothered with Shangguan Liuli. Facing these female students' ridicule, she didn't show any expression at all. Towards those whom she didn't care about, why would she care what others thought of her? She walked past these female students and walked towards the library pavilion's main entrance. Shangguan Liuli's expression instantly sunk. At this moment, Yiqing Luo still had the cheek to put on airs in front of her. She even dared to ignore her. She listened to Shangguan Feng Yi's words and had been bearing the grudge in her heart, waiting for a suitable opportunity to take revenge on Yiqing Luo. But every single time she saw Yiqing Luo, she would be inexplicably annoyed and had the thought of dismembering Yiqing Luo into 1,000 pieces. "Hey, Yiqing Luo, I'm talking to you." Shangguan Liuli's expression sunk as she stretched out her arm and blocked Yiqing Luo. Previously, she had suffered a loss in Yiqing Luo's hands, and towards Yiqing Luo's strength, Shangguan Liuli had some restraining fear. But yesterday, Yiqing Luo fainted from being frightened by the killers, successfully made Shangguan Liuli dispel her fear towards Yiqing Luo. Waste was waste, unable to make a comeback for the rest of her life. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as a sliver of impatience appeared in between her brows. Scram. She had just settled down for a few days, and now she wanted to jump out again? Shangguan Liuli's face turned black as her eyes stared wide open, not concealing her disgust towards Yiqing Luo at all. Merely a coward, useless fellow. Training together with you, I feel that you're throwing my face. She took a look at the few people beside her. Among the female students, they always liked to form cliques. Shangguan Liuli was the fifth miss of the Shangguan family, and her overall ability was very strong. Naturally, they were willing to treat Shangguan Liuli as their team big sister. He listened to Shangguan Liuli's arrangements for everything. On seeing Shangguan Liuli's eye signal, a few female students surrounded Yiqing Luo. The surrounding students didn't expect that as they spoke, they would actually start fighting. One by one, they put down their books or stopped in their tracks to look over. "Get out of here!" Suddenly, a loud roar came from the end of the library. With a ferocious look on his face, the librarian pointed at Shangguan Liuli and scolded. "This is the library, the most sacred place in the academy. If you don't wish to read, scram out of the library. Don't disturb the other students." The administrator frowned and looked at Yiqing Luo. "And you, get out of here too." The students were frightened by the sudden roar. Their bodies trembled as they quickly turned around and stood in a row, bowing their heads to the administrator. The people in the Heavenly Academy were all crouching tigers and hidden dragons. From the headmaster of the academy and the directors of the various departments to the street cleaners, they could all be masters of the world. Towards this administrator who had stayed in the academy for several decades, he had quite a reputation in the academy. The moment he roared, Shangguan Liuli and the other female students immediately lowered their heads and apologized, whereas Yiqing Luo, who was similarly roared at, had no intention to apologize at all. Chapter 398. Shangguan Liuli was standing closest to Yiqing Luo. She was still bowing to the administrator to apologize, but Yiqing Luo actually wanted to take the opportunity to leave? How could there be such a good thing? "Yiqing Luo, how dare you?" Instantly, Shangguan Liuli raised her volume as she pointed towards Yiqing Luo, who had already walked out of the main door. "You simply have no respect for your elders. How am I being presumptuous? The one who asked me to leave is the administrator, and if I leave obediently, it would become me having no respect for my elders." Yiqing Luo gave a cold harumph as the words she said made one unable to rebuke her. "You." Shangguan Liuli's finger, which was pointing at Yiqing Luo, froze, as she was so infuriated by Yiqing Luo's words that she was unable to rebuke her. However, Before Shangguan Lioli could finish her sentence, she heard the administrator's raging roar. Still quarreling? Do you believe that I will throw you out right now? His words had just ended when the administrator's robust body really bent over to carry Shangguan Lioli. Shangguan Lioli was so scared that her face turned pale as she screamed and retreated backwards. What a joke! No matter what, the administrator was a man, a robust middle-aged man. If she were to be carried by him, wouldn't her chastity be ruined for the rest of her life? Shangguan Lioli was in an extremely disheveled state as she stumbled out of the library pavilion. The other female students were afraid that the administrator would vent his anger on them, as all of them kept their mouths shut as they timidly ran out of the library pavilion. Shangguan Lioli's heart was crying out in frustration. It was currently the afternoon break time, and there were many students entering and exiting the library pavilion. Her current disheveled state fell into many students' eyes. She wondered how the rumors would turn out to be. The surrounding gazes were like needles as they fiercely pierced onto Shangguan Lioli. Lioli, are you all right? The female students surrounded Shangguan Lioli. But on seeing her pale face and a pair of venomous and sinister glint in her eyes, they all trembled. He subconsciously retracted his hand, and this tremble, this withdrawal of hand, completely agitated Shangguan Lioli. Who do you think you are? How dare you mock me? Shangguan Lioli didn't even think as she flung away the female student who was holding onto her and gave a tight slap on her face. That female student mysteriously suffered a slap as she fell onto the ground. Shangguan Lioli's pretty face was cold and twisted. She felt that these female classmates, who usually fawned over her, did not know how to speak up for her and did not know how to help her at a critical moment. How dare he laugh at her in his heart? That's right, ridicule. Shangguan Lioli thought that these female students were trembling because they were trying to hold back their laughter. He retracted his hand, thinking that she was embarrassed. He's sick. Yiqing Luo cast a sidelong glance at her. In her eyes, Shangguan Lioli was a lunatic with a serious princess syndrome. Living in his own world forever, he wouldn't listen to what others said. Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered to waste her saliva and turned around to leave. Behind her, Shangguan Lioli seemed as though she had gone mad, as she dashed in front of Yiqing Luo. Her expression was malevolent as her eyes, which made one feel chilly, stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo, aren't you amazing? Do you dare to fight me in this year's interclass competition? As soon as these words came out, the surrounding students exclaimed in surprise. Interclass competition? This was the regulated competition which was held once a year in the Heavenly Academy. It was also the only chance for all the students to change classes and climb to a higher class. Over the years, there were only 3 classes which took part in the interclass competition, namely low, intermediate, and high. Class of God was high above, and there was no room for them to rise. They had never participated in this kind of competition. Chapter 399. This kind of interclass competition was considered as a team competition. Shangguan Lioli's words were obviously representing the intermediate profound class 2 to issue a challenge to devil class. This was simply bullying intolerably. Too cunning. Shangguan Lioli knew that if she were to fight with Yiqing Luo alone, she would absolutely not be able to win. But if it was the intermediate profound class 2 against devil class, then the result would be different. Devil class was a bunch of trash and couldn't even be shown in public. Even if Yiqing Luo was supporting them alone, but after all, it was difficult to fight against 4 people. Could she go against the entire intermediate profound class 2 alone? It could be said that Shangguan Lioli had issued this challenge to Yiqing Luo in front of so many students. Although it was a little sinister, but it was the most appropriate choice. If Yiqing Luo were to reject it, in this academy, the news that she had fainted for being frightened by the killer and didn't dare to take part in the interclass competition, etc., her reputation in the academy would be ruined. If Yiqing Luo agreed to it, there was no need to wait for the competition. This result was already very obvious. Devil class would lose without a doubt. By then, Shangguan Lu would have another reason to humiliate Yiqing Luo. But Yiqing Luo, who heard Shangguan Lu's provocation, kept silent. She narrowed her long and narrow eyes slightly, as she estimated the overall ability of Devil Class. This interclass competition would only be held in 8 months' time. 8 months' time. She could make use of this opportunity to let Devil Class wash away the name of trash that they had been crowned with. If they were able to get first place in one fell swoop and become a class that surpassed the High Profound class, then Devil Class's hard work these few years would be repaid. She understood that Devil Class's students had been working hard to improve themselves, to make themselves stronger, to prove to those people that they were absolutely not trash. And the interclass competition was the only chance for Devil Class's students to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat only. Yiqing Luo wasn't clear to what extent did Long Yunjian intend to train these students to, before they could completely reveal their ability. Because of this, facing Shangguan Lu's challenge, Yiqing Luo was still hesitant. After all, she wasn't sure what Devil Class's students were thinking. She couldn't represent Devil Class to accept this challenge just because of her own face. Shangguan Lu, do you have to be so cheap? In the crowd, a slender figure suddenly walked out. It was Lu Xiaoyu with one hand on her waist and the other pointing at Shangguan Liuli. Who do you think you are? On what basis do you represent the entire Intermediate Profound Class 2 to issue a challenge to Devil Class? Do you think that the students of Class 2 are as despicable, shameless, and filthy as you? Lu Xiaoyu spat out a barrage of reprimands like a cannonball. Lu Xiaoyu had just ended her training and hadn't even had the time to wash up and change into a clean set of clothes when she heard the students talking about Yiqing Luo and Shangguan Lu having a conflict in a library pavilion. She didn't even bother to change her clothes and directly rushed over. Coincidentally, she heard Shangguan Liuli challenging Yiqing Luo. Shangguan Liuli was scolded so harshly that her originally smug face was now flushed red. That sense of shame once again welled up in his heart. If student Yi has no objections, I, the class monitor of Intermediate Profound Class 2, represent Intermediate Profound Class 2 to issue a challenge to Devil Class during the interclass competition. From the crowd, a tall and slender young man with regular features walked out. His eyes and brows exuded a heroic spirit. Chapter 400. Xia Class Monitor. Lu Xiaoyu stared at that young man as her bright eyes widened. Why are you following Shangguan Lu's blind jeering? Shangguan Lu's eyes lit up on seeing that she had a backer. She immediately smiled and looked at the man beside her. Xia Class Monitor. This call was called as tender as water. Xie Yan's smile didn't diminish as he put on a serious face. This is not blind jeering. For so many years, the interclass competition has always been between the low, intermediate, and high classes. Although Devil Class's students are slightly lacking in innate talent, but they are after all Heavenly Academy students. This kind of big event, Devil Class should indeed take part in it. If you take part, who knows, there might be 1 or 2 students who will be able to stand out and enter the low profound class. That would be a new start in your life. If you don't take part, then you won't even have the chance. Wouldn't you have wasted a year's time? Student Shangguan has indeed raised an interesting suggestion. If student Yi doesn't mind, can we have a battle? Saying that, the smile on his lips added some gentleness. Looking at Yiqing Luo's eyes, it was also filled with a polite smile. Yiqing Luo frowned. This young man, as compared to Shangguan Lu, was even harder to deal with. Every word and sentence was actually reasonable. Yiqing Luo couldn't find any fault to refute. Originally, Shangguan Lu's challenge, which came up with no rhyme or reason, portrayed the Intermediate Profound Class 2 as a class that bullied the weak, sinister, and cunning. But Xie Yan's words pushed the Intermediate Profound Class 2 to a higher platform. This was the charm of words. It was obviously the same meaning, but when different people said it, the resulting effect was totally different. At this moment, those students who were originally ridiculing Shangguan Lu for bullying the weak and fearing the strong representing the intermediate profound class 2, to play devil class for no reason. All nodded their heads, feeling that what Xie Yin said was very reasonable. And these words also blocked Yi Qing Luo's path of retreat. If she agreed, intermediate profound class 2 would gain a good reputation. Even if they defeated devil class badly, that would also be a good reputation. If she didn't agree, there might be people who scolded Yi Qing Luo for not knowing what's good for her. Just agree. You make it sound like the students of devil class are afraid. In the crowd, a low voice rang out. That voice was very familiar. Yi Qing Luo raised her head and saw Qiao Jin sandwiched in the crowd, acting as one of the spectators. His appearance was unremarkable, and he deliberately restrained his aura. He did not stand out in the crowd. The minute Qiao Jin opened his mouth, the surrounding students all started to cheer, making Yi Qing Luo agree to it. Everyone had the intention to watch the show. After all, the students of the devil class had already disappeared for a few years. The only two known students were Yi Qing Luo and Mo Yuing. Everyone was also very curious. After so many years, just how much trash had been stored in that place that housed all the trash in the academy. Since Xiao Jin had spoken up at this moment, he must have represented the opinion of the devil class. Immediately, Yi Qing Luo had no more worries. Her lips curled into a cold smile. Her charming eyes flashed a long and narrow cold arc, slightly raised. Just like what class monitor CS said, this is an opportunity for the devil class. We cannot waste a year's time. Xie Yin laughed. Student Yi is really smart, but I have a request. Yi Qing Luo restrained the sharp glint in her eyes as she slowly walked towards Xie Yin. If class monitor Xie has the ability to convince the elders' quarters, then I will represent devil class to accept your challenge. What request? Xie Yin's brows rose. It was related to the elders' quarters. Chapter 401. What the? You're making it seem as though class monitor Xie Yin is begging devil class to join in. Talk about conditions? What rights does devil class have to talk about conditions? If you want to join, then join. Forget it if you don't. On what basis are you talking about conditions? The surrounding students started to berate Yi Qing Luo with righteous indignation. A waste class really treated themselves as treasure and agreed to their conditions? Wishful thinking. What is your condition? Xie Yin asked with interest. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as she replied calmly. Devil class's freedom. Freedom? Xie Yin's brows creased in puzzlement, as though he didn't understand what Yi Qing Luo meant. I want devil class's students to have the freedom to leave or stay. Other than the academy's restricted areas, devil class's students have the right to go anywhere in the Heavenly Academy. This request, if the elders agreed to it, during the interclass competition, even if devil class's students performed outstandingly, the academy had no right to transfer them to other classes. Moreover, in the future, other than those restricted areas, they would be able to move freely. To announce devil class's students to the public, Yi Qing Luo naturally had to think of a way out for them. Xie Yin muttered to himself for a moment. This request, in fact, wasn't too difficult. He could roughly guess the reason why Yi Qing Luo raised this request. Those people in devil class were all waste, their innate talents were extremely bad, and they had no actual combat experience at all. They had been hiding in the academy like a mouse, hiding for several years, just because they were afraid of being bullied by other students. If they would take part in the interclass competition, these waste would definitely appear in front of everyone's eyes. If they didn't have this freedom, these students would definitely be isolated and bullied by the other class's students. He couldn't tell that this new student's thoughts were so meticulous. Xie Yin recalled his brother instructing him that he must definitely let Yi Qing Luo and devil class take part in the interclass competition 8 months later. He restrained the radiance in his eyes as he smiled faintly. This request, I can raise it up to the elders. The students were in an uproar. Xie Yin actually agreed to it? As for the other classes' requests, that will be up to them. Xie Yin spread out his hands with a helpless look, waiting for your answer. Yiqing Luo couldn't care less if he had any ideas or not. After throwing this sentence down, she squeezed out of the crowd and headed towards the direction of the canteen. Xie Yan didn't obstruct her as he squinted his eyes, gazing at Yiqing Luo's departing figure. A treacherous luster faintly appeared. Beside him, Shangguan Liuli looked around with her beautiful eyes, carefully grabbing Xie Yan's arm. "Class monitor Xie, thank you for helping me. If it wasn't for you, I would have been humiliated by her again." However, before he could even grasp it firmly, Xie Yan had already retracted his hand. "Student Shangguan, as a student of the intermediate profound class, to be humiliated by a student of the devil class. Do you think you have the qualifications to look down on the devil class?" Xie Yan still had a warm smile on his face, but the words that came out of his mouth were extremely ear-piercing. Shangguan Liuli was instantly stunned, and a trace of astonishment flashed past her face. Xie Yan appeared in front of everyone to help her out of trouble. Could it not be because he was helping her? Wasn't it because he was interested in her? She blinked as she stared at Xie Yan's handsome face, wondering if she had heard wrongly. But Xie Yan's deep and impolite words continued to enter her ears. "If you have the time to be jealous and bully your classmates, why not raise your own ability? A vase that only looks good will be eliminated sooner or later." Chapter 402. What was Xie Yan's identity? Yiqing Luo didn't know and didn't delve into it. But she was very clear that Xie Yan had agreed to her condition, which meant that he had the confidence to make the elders' quarters and the other class monitors to agree to it. Looked like the inter-class competition 8 months later, Devil class was definitely going to take part in it. She went to the cafeteria to buy some food and sat at the corner table. When the students saw her, they started pointing and gossiping. Yiqing Luo pretended not to see them as she finished her food on her own. At least his stomach was saved. She kept the cutlery and was about to get up when she saw Shangguan Fong walking over. That rather handsome face frowned tightly. "Student Yi, do you really intend to lead Devil class to take part in the interclass competition 8 months later?" Yiqing Luo's brows rose. This news spread really quickly. In just a meal's time, it had already spread to the entire courtyard. "Are you crazy? What kind of place is Devil class? If you lead Devil class to take part, wouldn't it be pushing Devil class to eternal damnation?" Shangguan Fong Yi's face was gloomy as he put on a concerned look towards Yiqing Luo. The interclass competition is an extremely cruel competition. Although it won't harm the other party's life, but there's a possibility of crippling them. "Xie Yan, that fox is obviously scheming against you." When he said the last sentence, he lowered his voice to a volume that only the two of them could hear. Apparently, he was afraid that the topic of him talking about Xie Yan would be spread out by others. However, while Shangguan Fong was worried like an ant on a hot pan, the young lady in front of him raised her slender brows as a ridiculing arc flashed past her slender eyes. "So, you." Shangguan Fong was instantly a loss for words. He had said so much, and this was the reaction she gave him? Could it be that she really wanted Devil class to take part in the interclass competition? It wasn't that he was afraid of Devil class or afraid of Yiqing Luo, but he wanted to make use of this opportunity to show concern for Yiqing Luo. After all, Yiqing Luo's own ability was something that he understood better than Shangguan Liuli. If he was able to woo this young lady who had been raised in her boudoir, based on Yiqing Luo's relationship with so many high and mighty people, wouldn't they all become his chess pieces? But he had not expected that Yiqing Luo totally didn't fall for his tricks. "Xie Yan is obviously trying to make fun of the Devil class. I believe in your ability, but the other students, I'm afraid they will fall into the evil hands of the intermediate profound class." Shangguan Fong frowned and spoke again. This time, his concern was even more obvious. "I just don't want to see you get hurt." When Yiqing Luo heard that, she couldn't help but burst out laughing. This pair of brother and sister were truly blood-related. One or two disgusting people in such a simple way. What does it have to do with you? Yiqing Luo squinted her cold eyes as her lips curled disapprovingly. Firstly, Devil class isn't led by me, but if the brothers in Devil class are willing to take part, I will follow along. Secondly, before the Devil class can participate, class monitor Xie must be able to fulfill the requirements that I have raised. Thirdly, since you look down on the Devil class, don't show up in front of me, after all. I'm also a student of the Devil class. Shangguan Feng, he kept saying that he didn't want Yiqing Luo to get hurt and so on. His words were filled with concern. But these words, weren't they looking down on Devil class from the bottom of his heart? Since he looked down on them, what was the point of putting on airs in front of her? Yiqing Luo originally didn't want to waste her saliva on Shangguan Feng Yi. But upon thinking that she would be harassed by others because of this matter, she might as well say everything out at once. Chapter 403. Student Yi, my kind advice is for your own good. If you insist on seeking death, then go ahead. Shangguan Feng Yi had always thought of himself as a romantic and elegant man. Wherever he went, he would receive the shy glances of women. It was rare for him to get close to a woman, but he was humiliated like this. He flew into a rage out of humiliation. With an ashen face, he flicked his sleeves and left. Yiqing Luo picked up the tray, and after washing the bowls and chopsticks, she placed it on the wooden rack by the side and turned around to leave. He had wasted quite a lot of time on this pair of siblings. Remembering that the ghost doctor had told him to return to the medicine refining room earlier, he quickened his pace and took a shortcut towards the library. The path from the cafeteria to the library was between the male and female dormitories. Because the dormitory management was very strict, no male students were allowed to climb over the walls of the female dormitory. This path was also blocked because many male students wanted to go to the female dormitory, but the dormitory management broke their legs, causing this path to be blocked. Yiqing Luo's figure was petite and her steps were light. Even if she was blocked, it wasn't too strenuous for her to walk. She crossed the small path and was about to take the main road to the library when a strong arm suddenly wrapped around her slender waist from behind. The elegant scent of sandalwood instantly filled her nostrils. The man's broad chest was tightly pressed against her soft back. That scorching temperature through her clothes seemed as though it was going to burn Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's body stiffened as her little hand held onto the large palm on her waist. You're really heartless. You've really thrown me to the back of your mind. The man's voice resounded in her ears. His tone was filled with displeasure. Yiqing Luo's petite body trembled. Hearing his grumbling words, a sense of guilt arose in her heart. Ever since she was sent to the library pavilion as a punishment and met the ghost doctor, there were too many things happening, and she indeed did not have the time to care about DMO Xian. He even stayed in Long Yunjian's spiritual energy treasure land for an entire night. DMO Xian would come to her dormitory every night and hug her to sleep together. But yesterday, she was assassinated and her dormitory was destroyed. She broke the rules again. How anxious would DMO Xian be when he knew that she had suffered a serious internal injury? Yiqing Luo put herself in DMO Xian's shoes, and she could empathize with that kind of anxiety. It was no wonder that DMO Xian could not keep his composure and started to grumble at her in broad daylight. I'm sorry, Xian. Yiqing Luo turned around in DMO Xian's arms and faced him. Two small hands circled around DMO Xian's waist. I've made you worry. The moment she raised her eyes, she met with DMO Xian's eyes. Those blood veins were like an enchanting blossoming flower. The peach blossoms glistened like a pool of spring water, flickering with flowing light. His obsidian black eyes reflected Yiqing Luo's countenance. His hair was slightly messy. It was obvious that he had not taken care of it for a long time. His brows were slightly furrowed, filled with deep worry. This one look made Yiqing Luo's heart thumped hard as it trembled fiercely. Her fair little hands trembled as she caressed DMO Xian's face. His smooth chin already had some stubble, which was slightly prickly to the touch. His peerless face still had his usual devilish charm, but it was hard to hide his haggardness. Especially since his skin was too fair, the green shadow at the corner of his eyes was even more obvious. Now that you know you're sorry, will you still dare to mess around like this in future? DMO Xian held Yi Qing Luo's hand. His tone was like a child's grumbling, but his eyes were filled with joy from seeing Yi Qing Luo safe and sound. Yi Qing Luo shook her head as she rubbed her face against his chest. Her cheeks were burning hot, and her ears were filled with an extremely rhythmic heartbeat, which made her feel indescribably at ease. Chapter 404. How dare he? To make the high and mighty Dizun worry about him like this. He felt sorry for her, and she also felt sorry for him. Last night, you didn't sleep at all. Yi Qing Luo's voice was gentle, revealing a tinge of heartache. DMO Xian lowered his head slightly as he placed his chin on her neck, sniffing the lady's fragrance. That restless heart in his heart slowly calmed down. His girl had met with the killers yesterday. At that critical moment, he could only stand at the top of the tall building and watch. He wanted to show himself to save Yi Qing Luo, to become her strongest support when she was in danger. But he couldn't. He loved Yi Qing Luo, but at the same time, he was the Imperial Palace's palace lord, shouldering the Imperial Palace's mission. If he were to show himself now, it would definitely attract the Academy's attention. All of his plans would fail. Hence, he attracted Long Yunjian. But he had not expected that after Chi exhausted the sacred beast's energy to allow Long Yunjian to transform into a dragon. In order to charge into the array barrier, it forced out the dragon's energy. It could be seen that in Long Yunjian's heart, Yi Qing Luo had already occupied a very important position. But it was because of yesterday's killer incident, which made DMO Xian even more determined to let Yi Qing Luo grow up on her own. He finally understood why Yi Qing Luo wanted to walk side by side with him and not let him protect her under her wings. Because Yi Qing Luo wasn't willing to be his burden. She wanted to be his assistant, an assistant who could help him. His identity meant that he had too much helplessness. He had no way to stay by Yi Qing Luo's side all the time. And his identity also meant that the people around him would meet with many unknown dangers because of him. He was actually very clear that if Long Yunjian wasn't able to transform into a dragon and kill those killers easily, he would absolutely take the risk of being discovered to save Yi Qing Luo. The degree of care he had for Yi Qing Luo had exceeded his imagination. DMO Xian concealed the deep meaning in his eyes as his arms tightened. Promise me, don't let yourself be in a dangerous situation in future. Yi Qing Luo smiled as the smile on her lips deepened. I will protect myself well. She told DMO Xian about how she met the ghost doctor in the library pavilion, then being chased by assassins, and finally meeting the blue dragon. The Academy has arranged a new dormitory for us. I reckon that we'll only be able to move in after we return to the Academy during the holidays. Tonight, I'll stay in the spiritual Qi treasure land to cultivate. I reckon that when I wake up tomorrow, my internal injuries should be completely healed. Yi Qing Luo explained where she went last night. Find a place and have a good rest for 2 days. We'll meet again when we return to Three Springs Sect. Chasing me away just like that? DMO Xian rubbed his head against her neck. That scorching breath blew on her earlobe from time to time. Yi Qing Luo endured the numbing feeling as her little hand clutched the robes around his waist tightly. Xian, I can't bear a part with you, but what I should do now is to work hard to raise my own strength. I don't want you to worry about me. Silly girl. DMO Xian sighed softly as his palm covered Yi Qing Luo's head, pulling the both of them apart. He lowered his eyes and stared into the woman's enchanting eyes as he gently kissed her on the lips. No matter how powerful you become, I will always worry about you. How could he not be worried? But no matter how worried he was, DMO Xian couldn't do something like intentionally distancing himself from her just to prevent her from getting hurt. He couldn't bear to, and he couldn't do it. This sweet kiss was gentle and lingering, deeply hooking Yi Qing Luo. Let's split up and look for him. If we can't find him, we'll inform Instructor He and Instructor Chu. Soon after, the sound of several footsteps could be heard walking back and forth. The soundproofing of the medicine refining room had been designed to allow the ghost doctor to refine medicine in peace. Moreover, the ghost doctor had been afraid of trouble, and because of that, it had been designed very well. By right, under the circumstances of the pill refining room being sealed, Yiqing Luo shouldn't be able to hear the discussions outside. It was just that. Yiqing Luo didn't know what was going on. Ever since she came out from the profound Qi treasure land this morning, her perception and acuity seemed to have increased by quite a bit. Separated by the thick walls, the footsteps and discussions of the students outside could be heard clearly in his ears. Obviously, these people were here to see her make a fool of herself. Yiqing Luo was a little speechless. Was she really so hated? It was just a punishment of cleaning the library pavilion. In the afternoon, Shangwan Lili had chided her, and now she had to be chided by others. Chapter 406. Yiqing Luo put down the book in her hands and silently walked to the side of the door as she opened a small gap. She saw a few female students walking around outside the library pavilion, pushing open one reading room after another as they searched for Yiqing Luo. They didn't dare to call out loudly, afraid that the administrator would be called over. All of them called out Yiqing Luo's name softly. Yiqing Luo's brows twitched. Why did she have a feeling of soul calling? It looked like if these people didn't find her, they probably wouldn't let this matter rest. Damn it, they were all people who had too much time on their hands. They didn't want to improve themselves, but her time was very precious. Suppressing the raging primitive energy in her heart, Yiqing Luo shut her eyes as she silently recited the incantation, and her figure suddenly swayed. In a blink of an eye, she disappeared from the pill refining room. The entrance of the pill refining secret passage split open, and Ghost Doctor walked out with a gloomy face. Before he could open his mouth to berate Yiqing Luo for creating trouble again, he saw Yiqing Luo's figure, as though it had blended into the air, disappearing without a trace. Little by little, a trace of astonishment appeared on his wrinkled face. He immediately congealed his senses, sensing Yiqing Luo's position. In the reading room not too far away, he sensed Yiqing Luo's weak presence, and the astonishment in his eyes grew by several degrees. In an instant, she silently shifted her position. Wasn't this the legendary secret method? This freshman, how was she able to display such a secret method? In the reading room, Yiqing Luo pretended to clean up as she patted the books on the bookshelf, arranging them properly one by one. Suddenly, the reading room's door was opened by someone. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes, recognizing her at one glance. High Profound Classes student, Yin Xiaoyi's half-sister with extremely high innate talent, Yin Jinfei. She's here. Yiqing Luo is here. The minute Yin Jinfei saw Yiqing Luo, she immediately stuck her head out and shouted. A few hurried footsteps were heard. 3 female students blocked the reading room's door. This line up. Yiqing Luo put down the book in her hands, turned around and smiled. I know you all worship me and are so agitated to see me. Are you all here to ask for my autograph? Bah. Yin Jinfei spat and turned to hug the arm of the female student behind her. Sister Xuelan, look at her. She's been punished for 2 days in a row. Her reputation is ruined, but she still doesn't know it. Lu Xuelan's beautiful eyes squinted slightly. Her expression was filled with pride as she examined Yiqing Luo. It was undeniable that Yiqing Luo's looks were too stunning, coupled with her extremely lazy attitude, as if she didn't care about anything. It added a bit of charm to her. Moreover, the temperament that she exuded was so unruly and unrestrained, yet at ease and at ease. Indeed, she had the capital to make people unable to shift their gazes away from her. Lu Xuelan hated Yiqing Luo's beauty, but at the same time, Yiqing Luo's existence was beneficial to her. No one was willing to be born under someone else. It was the same for her. In terms of appearance, talent, and profound rank, she was no worse than Lu Shuiyu. Just because Lu Shuiyu was born a year earlier than her, she had to become Lu Shuiyu's foil. Why? Usually, She and Lu Shuiyu had a deep sisterly relationship, running errands for Lu Shuiyu everywhere. Lu Shuilan had enough of these things. Hoping and waiting. Finally, Yi Qing Luo's appearance. She didn't like Yi Qing Luo, but as the saying goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. If she was able to rope in Yi Qing Luo and completely make Lu Shuiyu step down, then the position of vice president would be hers. Chapter 407. Yin Junfei's and the other female students' expressions changed instantly. What happened to finding trouble? How did it become helping Yi Qing Luo? Due to Lu Shuilan's status, the both of them had their doubts, but they didn't dare to say a single word. Yi Qing Luo's eyes narrowed as she laughed lightly. Help me? Acting vice president is so kind. That's natural. As the faculty council's vice president, I naturally have to be considerate of students. This is the faculty council's aim. Lu Shuilan apparently didn't hear the ridicule in Yi Qing Luo's words and thought that she was praising herself as a smile appeared on her face. Yi Qing Luo laughed silently in her heart. This Lu Shuilan was really not suitable to stand on such a high ground. Not even a third of her sisters. At least Lu Shuiyu knew how to conceal her own thoughts and other than Si Yin Mu's matters. Her brain spun extremely quickly. If this Lu Shuilan really became the vice president of the faculty council, she would probably be scolded by Si Yin Mu to the point of being drenched with dog's blood. Just one look at Lu Shuilan, and Yi Qing Luo knew what she was planning. Acting vice president, Yin Junfei's brows creased slightly as she gently tugged Lu Shuilan's sleeve. She's not praising. Shut up. Lu Shuilan berated coldly as her expression sunk. Aren't you going to help student Yi clean the library pavilion? Yin Junfei lowered her eyelids as she didn't dare to say another word. She pulled the female student next to her into the reading room to help Yi Qing Luo tidy up. Everything in the reading room had been tidied up by Qiao Jin and the rest yesterday, so they didn't need their help at all. Moreover, Lu Shuilan didn't have any good intentions. No need. Yi Qing Luo raised her hand and stopped the both of them. I don't need any help. If there's nothing, please leave and don't disturb me. She had tried her best to make her tone gentle and polite, but the three of them apparently didn't think so. Yin Junfei was originally suppressing a ball of fire in her heart because of Lu Shuilan's command, and without thinking, she pointed at Yi Qing Luo and rebuked, "Don't be unappreciative. Acting vice president asked us to help you because he thinks highly of you. What right do you have to reject him?" That's right, a student from the devil class, with such a notorious reputation. How dare he act so arrogantly? Another female student was also displeased. They were all high profound class students, and had always been used to being high and mighty. Since when was it the turn of a devil class student to point fingers? Pa! A bright red handprint appeared on Yin Junfei's face. She screamed in pain and covered her face. Her cheeks were swollen. She stared at Yi Qing Luo, but realized that Yi Qing Luo was standing at the same spot, as though she had not moved at all. But Yi Qing Luo raised her fair little hand and gently stroked it, totally indicating that this slap was from her. You're really thick-skinned, it hurts my hand. Yi Qing Luo looked like she was hit and sighed, my poor little hand, sighed. You. Yin Junfei's eyes were red. This slap had almost caused her teeth to fall out. It was so painful that when she moved her facial muscles slightly, she felt a tearing pain. Yi Qing Luo totally didn't bother about Yin Junfei's anger as she slowly turned her head and looked at the female student on the side. The female student subconsciously covered her face filled with horror. How on earth did Yi Qing Luo's slap land on her? They totally didn't see Yi Qing Luo moving at all. Yi Qing Luo. Lu Shuilan's expression wasn't too good as her forced smile froze on her face. Although Yi Qing Luo's slap landed on Yin Junfei's face. Chapter 408. Yi Qing Luo sneered, I don't have a good temper. Don't come and provoke me if you don't have the ability. Otherwise, I'll beat up whoever comes. Lu Shuelan narrowed her eyes as her eerie gaze sized up Yi Qing Luo's hand. 2 days ago, she had heard Yi Qing Jian mention that Yi Qing Luo was the one who trained the intruders in the forest. She had just become the acting vice president, and such a huge incident had already happened. If the news spread to the elder quarters, Elder Yinxiang would not be the only one to suffer. She would as well. Yesterday, there was the matter of an outside assassin trying to assassinate Yi Qing Luo, causing the Academy's students to be on tenterhooks as they started to question the Academy's safety. There were even some students from the High Profound class who didn't keep their mouths shut and revealed the trespassers. They were all guessing if the intruders that day were these assassins. In this time of panic, the students placed their hopes on the faculty council. Lu Shuelan was also very anxious. If the intruders were killers, then those intruders absolutely had nothing to do with Yi Qing Luo. Especially when they heard Shangwan Fangyi mention that when they tested Yi Qing Luo obviously didn't seem to have suffered any internal injury, and even gave Yi Qing Jian a good thrashing. Today she heard that Yi Qing Luo had been punished by the instructors and had agreed with Intermediate Profound Class 2's class monitor, Xie Yin, that Devil class would join in the interclass competition 8 months later. He became even more suspicious. Under Yin Zhanfei's invitation, Lu Shuelan decided to come to the library to take a look, to test if Yi Qing Luo was injured, and at the same time, to rope Yi Qing Luo in to get rid of Lu Shueyu completely. What Lu Shuelan had not expected was that Yi Qing Luo totally didn't fall for her tricks. Yi Qing Luo, you've offended so many people. I'd like to see what other backing you have and how long you can stay in the Heavenly Academy. Lu Shuelan's beautiful eyes were gloomy as she stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo. Since they couldn't be allies, they were enemies. Anyway, Yi Qing Luo and Lu Shueyu's relationship was like fire and water, so she wasn't worried that Yi Qing Luo would join hands with Lu Shueyu. Lu Shuelan snorted coldly. Just when she was about to leave, she heard the administrator's loud voice coming from the second floor. Students of the High Profound class, just read your books. Don't keep yelling. If you don't want to read, then scram. As he spoke, the administrator walked over. On seeing Yi Qing Luo, that incomparably fierce face revealed anger. It's you again. What are you doing in the library all day long? Seeing the administrator appear, a cunning look flashed across Yin Zhanfei's eyes. The hostility between her brows immediately disappeared, and she put on a pitiful look. She covered her face and sobbed softly. Administrator, we just came here to look for some cultivation books to read. Classmate Yi beat me up without any explanation. Vice President Dai and classmate Fong were just standing up for me, so their voices were a little louder. Hearing Yin Zhanfei's words and seeing the handprint on her face, the administrator's face darkened. He directly stretched out his hand towards Yi Qing Luo as he tugged her collar. A student like you, my library pavilion doesn't welcome you. Making trouble all day long. Get out of here. I'll talk to your instructor later and ask him not to throw people into the library when he punishes you. But just as his hand was about to grab Yi Qing Luo's collar, a white shadow flashed past. The administrator hadn't managed to react in time when his wrist instantly turned numb. He clutched his arm and didn't make any sound, but his face was filled with agony. It was so painful that his face turned pale as he broke out in cold sweat. He clenched his teeth, enduring the pain as he looked at the thing which had struck his wrist. A white porcelain bottle fell onto the floor as it shook slightly. That was a porcelain bottle which stored pills. This porcelain bottle, why did it look a little like? Chapter 409. The door of the alchemy room, which had always been tightly shut, was now half open. The dazzling luminous pearl cast a long shadow. Ghost Doctor was filled with a vicious aura as he stood at the entrance with a gloomy expression, his gaze staring eerily in the direction of Yi Qing Luo and the others. The administrator lowered his head in fear. Lord Ghost Doctor. The 3 female students beside him had been in the academy for many years, so they had naturally heard of the rumors about the Ghost Doctor. They also knew that the medicine refining room, was a forbidden area on the second floor of the library. Whether it was the high profound class or the class of gods, no one was allowed to step into the forbidden area. Because of this, no one had ever seen the ghost doctor herself. When he heard the administrator shout, his eyes immediately widened. How lucky were they today to actually meet the elusive ghost doctor? Lu Xuelon was the first to react. She hurriedly dragged the two female students behind her and lowered her head towards the ghost doctor. Lord Ghost Doctor. The ghost doctor's face was dark and cold. Her gaze was like a sharp knife as she stared coldly at the administrator. The administrator felt goosebumps all over his body as he broke out in a cold sweat. Lord Ghost Doctor, I'm really sorry. I'll let a few ignorant students disturb your refinement. I'll chase them out right now. The administrator thought that the ghost doctor's rage was entirely because these students had interrupted his concoction. Enduring the sharp pain in his wrist, he grabbed another student with each hand and walked out. But when his hand stretched out towards Yiqing Luo once again, Ghost Doctor's porcelain bottle struck his wrist once again. It was precisely in the same position. This time, it was so painful that the manager cried out on the spot. He clutched his wrist and looked at the ghost doctor with a face full of fear and confusion. When Lu Xuelon and the others saw this, they did not dare to make a sound. They lowered their heads, hoping that their presence would be reduced to the minimum. Come here. The ghost doctor's voice was ice cold, his gaze cold. The administrator's sturdy body suddenly trembled. The sharp pain in his arm caused his face to contort in pain. Hearing the ghost doctor's words, no matter how scared he was, he didn't dare to retort. Lifting his feet, he walked towards the ghost doctor. But a slender figure was even faster than him and walked in front of him. Yiqing Luo's footsteps were light and graceful, as though there wasn't a single bit of fear or terror, nor did she tremble from the powerful pressure that ghost doctor had unleashed. She walked straight towards the ghost doctor, openly and openly. Hey, get back here. That was the ghost doctor. If you offend the ghost doctor, even if you die 10 times, it won't be enough to compensate. The manager's face instantly turned pale. He had been a librarian in the academy for decades and had always been in charge of the library. Naturally, he knew the ghost doctor's temper and personality. He hated trouble and didn't think about the academy at all. There was once a student who kept pestering him to learn the skills of refining medicine, but was beaten out by the ghost doctor with a single palm strike. That student was seriously injured and had to leave the academy. Later on, it was said that he had completely become a cripple. However, the one who made the move was the ghost doctor. That student's family did not dare to cause trouble for the academy. Student Yi, the administrator, saw Yiqing Luo walking towards ghost doctor's direction in a daze. He endured the pain in his wrist as he dashed forward, trying to pull Yiqing Luo back. Although he didn't have any good impression of Yiqing Luo, but she was after all a student of the academy, and as a senior figure in the academy, he wasn't willing to see any student getting hurt. But the scene in front of him caused the administrator to suddenly stop in his tracks. He staggered and almost fell to the ground. He saw Yiqing Luo walking in front of Ghost Doctor and nodding her head slightly at him. Senior Ghost Doctor. Chapter 410. The administrator and the 3 female students behind him were all stunned. Especially the administrator. His mouth was agape as his face was filled with disbelief. Had he developed an auditory hallucination? Developing hallucinations? Sir Ghost Doctor actually didn't slap that student out. He actually used such an amiable tone to speak to that student. If Yiqing Luo knew the administrator's inner thoughts, she would probably ridicule endlessly. Damn it. This is called amiable? This fiendish look, as though I owe him 1,800,000 coins. This is also called amiable? However, in the administrator's eyes, he was used to seeing how Ghost Doctor ruthlessly slapped one after another. Ghost Doctor didn't take any action and only said a few words, which was already considered as the most amiable. Who asked my disciple to scram out? Ghost Doctor's vision shifted away from Yiqing Luo, locking onto the administrator. When the administrator heard the two words disciple, he was instantly struck by lightning from a clear sky. His ears were filled with the sound of thunder exploding. Not only him, Lu Shuelon, Yin Junfei, and the others also had a look as though they had seen a ghost. Yiqing Luo was Ghost Doctor's disciple? How could that be possible? Lu Shuelon was just hooting, saying that Yiqing Luo no longer had any backing and now a Ghost Doctor appeared. She felt as though her face was being slapped. Her hands, which were hanging by the side of her body, clenched tightly into fists. Why was Yiqing Luo so lucky? What mysterious and noble people all became her backing? First it was the Overlord, then it was Guei Yu, and now a Ghost Doctor. Lu Shuelon was so hateful that her lungs were about to explode. But on her face, she didn't dare to reveal any of it. The administrator's well-built body kept trembling as his voice trembled. Sir Ghost Doctor, I didn't know that Student Yi is your disciple. How would I dare? How would I dare to ask her to scram? Ghost Doctor gave a cold laugh. The administrator trembled even more violently. He suddenly slapped his own face. Left and right slaps. The strength was huge. 2 slaps, and his entire face swelled up. Sir Ghost Doctor, the one who spoke rudely was me. The one who had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai is also me. It has nothing to do with these students. The administrator raised his head, and after meeting the Ghost Doctor's eyes, he immediately lowered his head again. I beg Lord Ghost Doctor, please release this group of students. When Lu Shuelon heard this, her face immediately turned pale. She dragged the 2 female students and knelt on the ground. Yes. This matter has nothing to do with us. It was the administrator who told Student Yi to get out. We don't know anything. These words really made one's heart turn cold. The administrator only glanced at them, and also knelt down. It's my fault. I beg Lord Ghost Doctor to let these students go. Yiqing Luo slowly narrowed her eyes as she swept past Lu Shuelon and the others who were kneeling on the ground, as she sneered. This smile seemed exceptionally clear and ethereal in the empty library, adding some mysteriousness to it. The Ghost Doctor turned her head and glanced at her, her expression cold. Then she said lightly, Since you spoke rudely, you have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Why you still need this mouth and this pair of eyes? Hearing these words, the manager's face instantly turned pale. Lu Shuelon, who was kneeling on the ground, turned soft as she was so frightened that she directly knelt down on the ground. The administrator glanced sideways at the 3 frightened students behind him as he clenched his teeth. Yes, spoke rudely. You have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. This mouth, this pair of eyes, indeed cannot be kept. Saying that, he raised his hand and congealed a burst of profound qi as he stabbed towards his own eyes. Chapter 411. Dong. A soft sound was heard, and the administrator gave a muffled groan. Lu Shuelon and the others slowly opened their eyes and saw a bewitching red glow flashing past. That was Yiqing Luo's feather fan, like a ball of blazing fire, forming an arc in midair as it returned to Yiqing Luo's hand. Whereas the administrator who was struck by that feather fan earlier, his sturdy body was on the verge of collapsing onto the ground. Disciple is not satisfied with the way you handled this? Ghost Doctor squinted his eyes as he stared coldly at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo waved her feather fan and pressed against her lower lip as she casually brushed past the administrator and gave a faint laugh. Since administrator has already admitted his mistake, then let's just forget about this matter. Ghost Doctor gave a cold laugh. The administrator laid on the ground as his clothes were soaked in sweat. He trembled as he climbed up and was just about to continue kneeling when he heard Ghost Doctor's cold voice. Still not going to scram. The administrator was stunned as his eyes revealed a look of ecstasy. In other words, Ghost Doctor had let him off. He immediately kowtowed on the ground. Thank you, Sir Ghost Doctor. Thank you, Student Yi. Saying that, he got up and dragged the 3 female students as he speedily left the second story of the library pavilion, not daring to stay any longer. Yi-Ching Luo saw the administrator leaving and cupped her fists towards Ghost Doctor. "Thank you, Senior Ghost Doctor, for stepping forward." "Oomph." Ghost Doctor flicked his sleeves as he turned around and walked into the pill refining room. Yi-Ching Luo rubbed her nose as she followed him in. She was very curious. Why would the Ghost Doctor, who had always hated trouble, get involved in such a dispute? Just a single disagreement, and he would lose his mouth and eyes, so brutal and bloody. Stand up for her? It seemed like in Ghost Doctor's heart, she hadn't reached the level where he would stand up for her. After Ghost Doctor entered the pill refining room, he stared eerily at Yi-Ching Luo as his half-squinted eyes revealed a sense of scrutiny. Yi-Ching Luo's hair stood on end from his stare as she had a taste of the administrator's feeling earlier, and it wasn't a good feeling. "Why did you help him?" After a while, Ghost Doctor asked coldly. "Help him?" Yi-Ching Luo blinked her eyes in puzzlement as she realized that he was referring to the administrator. "No reason. I just feel that the Academy's elders who are thinking for the students are worthy of respect." Yi-Ching Luo replied calmly. Seeing that the administrator was even willing to destroy his own eyes so that Lu Shualan and the others could leave unscathed, this action made Yi-Ching Luo recall that when she walked towards Ghost Doctor, he had also disregarded Ghost Doctor's prestige and wanted to go up to stop her. This action aroused her compassion. Although the administrator was a little fierce and his words were a little harsh, his heart for the sake of the students was sincere. In this dirty academy, there was still someone with such a pure heart. Yi-Ching Luo respected him. Hearing Yi-Ching Luo's reply, Ghost Doctor gave a cold harumph. "You're rather kind." "Kind?" Yi-Ching Luo smiled in disbelief. Perhaps the current her was indeed much more soft-hearted than before. This word had nothing to do with her in the past. But ever since she came to this strange world and met people who melted the ice in her heart, she was indeed living more and more like a human. However, she liked her current self very much. At least he had flesh and blood, and he had his own feelings. Unlike before, he was like a cold killing machine, living like that. Her lips curled as she smiled. "Isn't Senior Ghost Doctor the same as well? Even if I don't open my mouth to stop him, I'm afraid Senior will stop him." Ghost Doctor's expression was icy cold as he didn't open his mouth to rebuke. Chapter 412. The Ghost Doctor stared at the beautiful young lady in front of him. Her smile was very bright, without any impurities, clean and pure. A pair of curved, enchanting eyes were overflowing with color. Recalling what happened earlier, when Yi-Ching Luo was facing the administrator and the other 3 female students, she was calm and unperturbed in the face of danger, her brows loosened slightly. This young lady was getting more and more interesting. His eyes flashed, and he narrowed his sharp eyes. "I thought I had already answered!" Exclamation point. Yi-Ching Luo was shocked, so Ghost Doctor also knew cold humor. She choked on her saliva and coughed violently. She opened her eyes wide and stared fixedly at the Ghost Doctor. The Ghost Doctor's expression hadn't changed from start to finish. Only her eyes had narrowed slightly, revealing a cold glint. Yi-Ching Luo shuddered. "Senior Ghost Doctor's meaning is, you're really prepared to take me in as your disciple? Do I look like someone who jokes?" The Ghost Doctor snorted coldly. Yi-Ching Luo shook her head immediately. It didn't look like it. Absolutely not at all. That meant the Ghost Doctor really wanted to take her as his disciple. However, after these 2 days of interaction, she felt that the Ghost Doctor's impression of her wasn't that good. She was just a dispensable existence. When she came back from lunch, she also had a fierce look on her face. Why did he suddenly seem like a different person? Strange. It was too strange. There was definitely a trap. Yi-Ching Luo was vigilant. Her eyes were like torches. "Senior Gay, just say what you want to say. We're honest people and don't do underhanded things." The Ghost Doctor's eyebrows twitched. As expected, taking in disciples was simply too troublesome, especially when he was taking in such a weird little girl. He frowned and did not want to get himself into trouble again. He directly asked the question he wanted to ask. Where did you learn the secret technique you used before? Secret technique? Yi Qing Luo's expression congealed. Could it be that when he used teleportation just now, the ghost doctor had seen him? He wanted to learn about this secret technique from her. Was that why he appeared to help her when the administrator chased her away? That secret technique, if I'm not mistaken, should be the King of Thieves' teleportation secret technique. The ghost doctor's eyes narrowed, sharp and incisive. Teleportation secret technique. The ghost doctor would never make a mistake. Even if tens of thousands of years had passed, he would never forget it. These were their brothers from back then. He stopped his train of thought, his eyes revealing a bit of urgency. If he was able to find out the origin of the secret art from Yi Qing Luo, perhaps he might be able to find those few brothers of his. But Ghost Doctor's words had already blocked Yi Qing Luo's way out. For the Ghost Doctor to be able to accurately name the secret technique, as well as the creator of this secret technique, she naturally had a deep understanding of secret techniques. Yi Qing Luo shouldn't try to use rubbish to bluff him. Yi Qing Luo muttered to herself for a moment as she pursed her pink lips slightly, secretly guessing how she should explain the origin of the blink movement secret art. She naturally couldn't tell anyone about the Azure Dew bracelets. After all, this thing did not belong to this world. Moreover, if news of this were to spread, with her current strength, she would have no way of guarding the Azure Dew bracelet. After pondering for some time, Yi Qing Luo decisively decided to drag that evildoer of hers out. Soldiers are trained for a day to be used in a moment. If she didn't make use of DMO Xian's identity now, when would she be able to do so? She nodded her head as she gave a bashful smile. That is indeed the blink movement secret art. I have some friendship with the Overlord, and he felt that my profound grade is too low, making me easily bullied, so he taught me this secret art so that I can use it to escape. The Ghost Doctor's brows creased. Overlord. Yi Qing Luo nodded her head repeatedly. That's right, it's DMO Xian. Decisively aim her target at DMO Xian. The Ghost Doctor remained silent as his eyelids drooped down, muttering softly, Overlord, Overlord. After muttering for some time, he raised his head with an agitated look as his brows creased. You're talking about that Imperial Palace's palace lord who had recently risen. People call him Overlord, DMO Xian. What? There is actually someone in this world who didn't know DMO Xian. Chapter 413. The so-called legend. Wasn't it something which everyone in the world didn't know about and knew about? She thought that Ghost Doctor was talking about DMO Xian because he was afraid of DMO Xian's power. She had not expected. Ghost Doctor was thinking, who on earth was DMO Xian? All right, Ghost Doctor's world only consisted of refining pills and no other miscellaneous stuff. The next time you see that fellow from the Imperial Palace, ask him to come and see me. Ghost Doctor's next sentence was shocking. Yi Qing Luo's mouth turned into an O shape once again. He was indeed Ghost Doctor. Even when facing DMO Xian, he totally disregarded him. No. Now wasn't the time to be tangled about whether Ghost Doctor recognized DMO Xian or not, but Ghost Doctor wanted to meet DMO Xian. Then wouldn't the matter of her pushing the blame to DMO Xian be exposed? But since Ghost Doctor had already said so, Yi Qing Luo could only brace herself as she gave a few dry laughs. No problem, Senior Ghost Doctor's request. Even if I have to climb a mountain of swords or plunge into a sea of flames, I will definitely do it for you. The blame which she pushed out, even if she had to kneel down, she had to push it down. Towards Yi Qing Luo's talkative words, Ghost Doctor's expression didn't change at all. His gaze swept across the pill refining room and discovered that not only were the medicinal cabinets pasted neatly with medicinal herbs' names, even the messy bookshelves were stacked neatly. It had only been a few hours. This young lady's actions were rather fast. It seemed like she knew a lot about medicine refinement. Today, because he saw Yi Qing Luo displaying her blink movement secret art, he appeared to help her out of her predicament, saying that he would take her in as his disciple. But at this moment, he felt that his decision was simply right. Although it was a little troublesome, But if he took in a young lady with an extremely strong innate talent in pill refining, then it would save a lot of time in future. All right, that's all for today. You can go back now. When Ghost Doctor turned his head back, he resumed his cold and aloof look. Saying that, he seemed to have thought of something as his brows creased into a bundle. Take your hand out. Yiqing Luo didn't know what was going on, but she still stretched out her hand. Ghost Doctor placed his hand on her pulse and helped to take her pulse. Your body's recovery ability isn't bad at all. If there's no accident, take another medicinal pill tonight and you'll be able to recover completely. Ghost Doctor took her pulse and casually waved Yiqing Luo's hand away. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up as her face revealed joy. He thought that he would need 3 to 5 days to fully recover, but he didn't expect that he would be completely healed tonight. The Ghost Doctor's elixirs, as well as the heaven and earth spiritual chi in the spiritual chi treasured land, were of great help to her internal injuries. Tomorrow, the Academy will be on holiday for 3 days. Memorize all these books. Ghost Doctor walked to the front of the bookshelf, and his gaze swept across the neatly arranged bookshelf as he casually picked out 3 books and threw them towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo caught it firmly and lowered her head to take a look. Of these 3 books, one was an introduction to rare medicinal herbs and their locations. Another was a recipe for medicinal pills. And the last one was the detailed steps of refining medicinal pills. It was an entry-level book for refining medicine. Although the current Yiqing Luo had already reached the alchemist level of refining pills, but she was after all a half-baked alchemist, and her alchemy foundation was still not enough. These books could help her consolidate her foundation. No matter what, no matter how talented one was, one's foundation was the most important. If one's foundation wasn't strong enough, even if one reached the peak, as long as someone pushed slightly from below, it was very likely that they would fall. It was like building a house. If the foundation wasn't strong enough, if there was an earthquake or a strong gale, this house would easily collapse. Yiqing Luo nodded her head as she kept those 3 books. Chapter 414. When Yiqing Luo walked down from the first story of the library pavilion, the administrator who had been fidgeting restlessly at the management counter immediately went up to welcome her. That fierce and rough face now carried a cautious expression. Yi, classmate Yi. When the surrounding students saw this, they all revealed a puzzled expression. Why was the administrator so respectful towards Yiqing Luo? As though he was afraid of Yiqing Luo? This must be a misconception. One must know that the library pavilion administrator was famous for his bad temper. He would shout at the students if there was any disagreement, and almost half of the students in the academy had been ravaged by his rough voice, which was like a bell. But now, he was actually being so submissive in front of a new student, and a new student from Devil Class. Yiqing Luo noticed the surrounding students' gazes and knew that Lu Shuelan and the others were so frightened that they left directly, so she didn't dare to reveal the fact that she was Ghost Doctor's disciple. After all, Lu Shuelan and the others hated Yiqing Luo to the core. They were very clear that Yiqing Luo had many enemies, so how could they possibly reveal the fact that Ghost Doctor was backing her up? Yiqing Luo retracted her gaze and curled her lips towards the administrator. Everything will be fine, as usual. The administrator responded and stood up to send Yiqing Luo out. This action attracted many students' guesses. After Yiqing Luo walked out of the library pavilion, she headed towards the Devil Class's direction. It was nearing the time for Devil Class's training. Yiqing Luo was thinking about the matter of accepting the intermediate profound class to participate in the class confrontation. Although Qiao Jin had already agreed to it, but Long Yunjian was after all Devil Class's class monitor, so she still had to talk to him about it. The minute she entered the second door, she heard a lady's crisp voice coming from the training ground. Your battle power isn't bad at all. Do you want to come again? This voice sounded unfamiliar. Devil Class had new students again? On the training ground, most of the students had already arrived. Everyone didn't warm up like usual, but gathered in a circle as though their emotions were ignited as they waved their arms and shouted. Indistinctly, there were some low shouts and collision sound from a fight. Not long later, two figures were seen flying out from the crowd as they rolled onto the ground. The students who had gathered in a circle were shouting excitedly as they complained to the students who had been sent flying. The two students rubbed their waists and waved their hands. No more, no more. We're convinced. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes, and coincidentally, because those two students were sent flying, the students started to move to the two sides, opening up a path. Yiqing Luo saw a petite young lady dressed in the academy uniform being wrapped up by the crowd. With one hand on her waist, her delicate and exquisite face revealed a complacent smile. Her pitch-black, watery eyes flashed with the craftiness of a cat. Yiqing Luo frowned. This was not a student from the devil class, but he looked a little familiar. Just as she was about to step forward to inquire about the situation, Yiqing Luo's chest suddenly surged with a scorching feeling. Her profound heart jade actually started to burn brilliantly in her chest. She stopped in her tracks and covered her chest. Looking at that young lady again, Yiqing Luo was stunned. He was so stunned that he even forgot the burning sensation in his chest. Behind the young girl, a black shadow rose up like a guardian god, closely following the young girl. What shocked Yiqing Luo the most was that black shadow was a gigantic phantom of a beast, faintly discernible. That was a cat, a pitch-black agile cat. Last Luo, that is the bloodline of the Beastman race. In her mind, Old Man Song's voice was heard. After the Beastman race transform into human form, every time they battle, they will summon their own bloodline, and this is also the bloodline which the contractor will inherit. Chapter 415. Old Man Song's voice was low. Generally speaking, humans can't see that shadow. If the shadow is seen and the enemy directly attacks it, it will cause damage to the original body. His voice revealed some doubt. How can you see the black cat shadow? Yiqing Luo also had doubts in her heart. All of a sudden, her profound heart jade became incomparably hot. When she looked at that young girl again, she could already see the black cat shadow. Could it be related to the profound heart jade? This profound heart jade did not refer to the profound heart jade that DMO Xian had formed for her, because it seemed that before DMO Xian formed the profound heart jade for her, she could already see through the profound grades of Yuchiya and the other trash, as well as the profound heart jade level. And every time, this kind of heat would be transmitted from her chest. What exactly was going on? The young girl in the crowd, because she had defeated many students, was feeling proud of herself when she felt someone staring at her. Following the gaze, when she saw Yiqing Luo's face, the young girl smiled even more brilliantly. Elder sister, I finally see you." That young girl skipped and dashed towards Yiqing Luo. That pair of watery cat-like eyes sparkled with obvious excitement. Yiqing Luo discovered that when the young girl ran over, the black cat shadow behind her gradually disappeared. It seemed that only during battle, this bloodline shadow would appear to provide the young girl with strength. The young girl's hand hooked onto Yiqing Luo's arm. "Elder sister, thanks to you saving me, I was able to escape this calamity. Kitty has nothing to repay you. From now on, I will always follow by elder sister's side and protect elder sister." The young girl's soft hand and that intimate aura. Yiqing Luo didn't have the slightest bit of repulsion. That pair of black eyes, overflowing with starlight, didn't have the slightest bit of hypocrisy. The Beastman race's little cat beast. What were her ears? And that tail? Yiqing Luo's gaze swept over her head and indeed saw that her two black furry ears were hidden under her hair, and that black tail behind her was also curled up, hidden under her uniform. From this look, she was no different from a human. "Oh, right, elder sister. I still haven't introduced myself." The young girl smiled sweetly, her eyes sparkling with a lively luster. "My name is Kitty Lee. It's Lee as in Lioli, not Lee as in fox." She tilted her head and smiled. "Big sister, You can call me Kitty, big sister. You don't have to introduce yourself. I know, big sister, big sister. You're a really, really amazing person. All the big brothers and sisters in the class really admire big sister. Hearing Kitty Lee's words, the surrounding students turned their faces away in embarrassment. No one had expected that Kitty Lee would actually say out those words about them worshipping Yi Ching Luo behind her back, right in front of her face. Looking at those students' distressed looks, Yi Ching Luo's heart suddenly softened. A hint of gentleness also appeared on her beautiful face. Her delicate facial features were extremely gentle. It could be said that she was a peerless beauty. The surrounding students were dumbfounded for a moment. Sister, you're so beautiful. Kitty Lee's curved eyebrows revealed envy as she rubbed her head against Yi Ching Luo's arm. Kitty Cat likes beautiful sister. Do you want to contract Kitty Cat? The soft touch on his arm was like a kitten rubbing against him. Contract her. This was a reason why Yi Ching Luo chose to save her right from the start. To be able to contract a beast man and obtain the cat beast bloodline inheritance. Her own strength would also receive a huge upgrade. According to the current situation, Kitty Lee's ability seemed to be not bad. She was actually able to challenge several students alone. Then why was she in the heavenly training forest and met with the evil schemes of the high profound class students? Chapter 416. Contract. The surrounding students looked at each other in dismay. They only knew that the contract was used on magical beasts. Could it be that humans could contract as well? Everyone didn't think too much about it, only thinking that this young lady wanted to follow beside Yi Ching Luo to be her follower. Who on earth are you? Suddenly, a cold voice was heard from the other end of the training ground. Tong Ziqing's expression was icy cold. Her brows knitted into a bundle as she stared at Kitty Lee with vigilance. From the skills you displayed today, your profound grade must be above Mystic Profound 6th grade. And you don't panic in the face of danger, so you should be someone who is used to fighting. Most importantly, your speed is not wrong, and your reaction is extremely strong. Why would you be caught by the high profound class students in the heavenly training forest and look so weak? Tong Ziqing's words completely voiced out the doubts in Yi Ching Luo's heart. Tong Ziqing didn't understand why Yi Ching Luo risked being found out by the high profound class students to save Kitty Lee. Moreover, Yi Ching Luo was seriously injured by Yi Ching Qian's earth profound grade pressure, and all this was because of Kitty Lee. If it wasn't for Kitty Lee, Yi Ching Luo wouldn't be seriously injured and wouldn't be tested by Yi Ching Qian and wouldn't be punished by the instructors to tidy up the books in the library pavilion and wouldn't be so helpless when facing the killers. Yi Ching Luo's current reputation in the academy made her angry. If it wasn't for the assistant class monitor who had been persuading everyone, she might not be able to hold it in and directly beat up those people who were spreading rumors. Kitty Lee let go of Yi Ching Luo's arm, tilted her head, and blinked her bright and crafty eyes. Because Kitty Lee is hungry. Hungry? What kind of excuse was that? Everyone couldn't believe it, but Kitty Lee explained seriously. Kitty Lee was locked in that lousy forest the minute she arrived at Nirvana Realm and had nothing to eat. Kitty Lee has been hungry for a long time. As she said that, she used her hands to gesture to open it up and repeated "so long" several times. Kitty Lee is so hungry that she can't move. How would she have the energy to run? That group of ferocious people couldn't see how cute Kitty was, so they beat Kitty up without any explanation. Kitty Lee's pink lips pouted slightly, showing some displeasure. If it wasn't for Big Sister saving Kitty Lee, those people would definitely want to bring Kitty Lee back to cook. Everyone was dumbfounded. What a heavy taste. Nowadays, even if there were people who ate human flesh, these students wouldn't dare to eat it in the academy. It was also because of these shocking words that the students did not pay much attention to the meaning of the words just arrived in the Nirvana realm that Kitty Lee said. Ahem. Among the students, Biming Lu raised her hand weakly. Kitty didn't lie. When you brought her back, apart from the superficial wounds on her body, she did have an empty stomach for a long time. Tong Ziqing's expression became even more ashen. She stared at Kitty Lee for a long time before she snorted coldly and turned around to walk towards the small path of the academy. Kitty Lee, don't take it to heart. Sister Ziqing is just jealous of you. And Ruo Pan looked at the direction where Tong Ziqing left and couldn't help but laughed. Now the one who worships Madame Qing Luo the most is Sister Ziqing. Now that she saw you monopolizing Madame Qing Luo, she doesn't feel good. Kitty Lee smiled till her eyes curved, and once again held onto Yi Qing Luo's arm. I want to form a contract with Sister, and in future, I will not let go of Sister. Yi Qing Luo was helpless. She wasn't a man, to be snatched here and there by two beauties out of jealousy. Could it be that she wanted to kill both men and women? Activate the 3 palace and 6 courtyards mode. Chapter 417. All right. The Academy doesn't know how many students there are in the Devil class. Since Kitty Cat is here, then stay in the Devil class. Yi Qing Luo rubbed Kitty Cat's head. She knew Kitty Cat's real identity, so naturally she believed in Kitty Cat's innocence. Although the Beastmen were half human, half beast, but to Old Man Song, the Beastmen basically lived alone and would not intentionally blend into the human world. Deep in their bones, they still had the purity of the Beastmen. It's time for training. Go ahead and train. Yi Qing Luo was about to head towards the academy's small path when another student called out to her from behind. Qing Luo, I heard that. You've already agreed to the interclass competition 8 months later. Is that true? That student stared at Yi Qing Luo eagerly as his hands were clasped together, extremely nervous. When the surrounding students heard this topic, the atmosphere instantly ignited. As Yi Qing Luo was seriously injured and was assassinated by the killer, these students stayed in the academy today to ensure that Yi Qing Luo was safe and sound. Because of that, they didn't know what happened in the academy today. The moment they heard the words interclass competition, the students' expressions changed. Interclass competition. This was a competition that all the classes wanted to participate in with all their might. If they were successful, they would be able to advance to a higher level class and obtain generous rewards, as well as receive the respect and admiration from everyone in the academy. More importantly, this was a proof of ability. For so many years, Devil Class's students have been hiding in the Devil Class, immersing themselves in cultivation and training to advance. Even if it was actual combat training, it would be one's own people fighting against one's own people. There was no sense of satisfaction at all. As for the Heavenly Academy's annual interclass competition, Devil Class's students wanted to take part in it so much that they almost went crazy. However, their class monitor had always rejected their requests with the excuse that the time wasn't right. Today, upon hearing that Yi Qing Luo had agreed to the interclass competition 8 months later, all of them jumped up in joy, as though they wanted to leap 3 feet into the air. I have indeed agreed to it. Yi Qing Luo lightly curled her lips. After the students got her affirmation, they couldn't suppress the excitement in their hearts as they rushed forward and surrounded Yi Qing Luo. Just as everyone wanted to lift Yi Qing Luo up and shout excitedly, they heard Yi Qing Luo spitting out 2 words. But everyone's hearts were in their throats as they stared at her. As for whether I can participate or not, firstly, I still need to seek the class monitor's approval. Secondly, I still need to see if the class monitor from class Xian 2, Xia, can agree to my request. Thirdly, Yi Qing Luo paused for a moment. Her voice suddenly became much louder and revealed a tone like she was trying to abduct a little brother. This is the most important point, is within these 8 months, can your strength reach the level of surpassing the high profound class and win first place in one fell swoop? When the third point was mentioned, the smiles on all the students' faces gradually froze. All of them fell silent. If they were to win against the intermediate profound class, or tie with the high profound class, they would have full assurance and confidence. But to surpass the high profound class and win first place, one must know if the Devil class really won the championship. The Academy would definitely allow the powerful and mysterious Devil class to participate in the competition. Chapter 418. If Devil Class won, it would be equivalent to smearing the Heavenly Academy's name. Their original thoughts were merely to take part in the interclass competition, to go through actual combat with the students from other classes, to raise their own ability. To them, promotion or ranking wasn't important at all. What they wanted was to prove to the entire Academy's teachers and students that they weren't waste, and that they were strong enough to support the heavens. That was all. But Yiqing Luo's target was to win the championship. This, to them, was an extremely huge pressure. Yiqing Luo seemed as though she couldn't see the difficulty on their faces, as her voice remained calm. If you have the confidence, then work hard to raise your own training in these 8 months. Lulu and I will refine supplementary medicinal pills for you, and in terms of training, it will depend on your individual hard work and innate talent. The students became silent. They had no confidence. Do you know why I insist on you winning the championship? Just as the training grounds were in a state of silence, Yiqing Luo's clear and melodious voice rang leisurely. The students raised their heads as they looked at Yiqing Luo. Whereas at the other end of the training grounds, Xiao Jin and Yin Xiao, he didn't make sound. In their hearts, Devil Class's students indeed had great growth, which was comparable to the High Profound class. But in terms of actual combat, training, and strategy, they were far from the High Profound class. Locking these students in Devil Class to train had its pros and cons. Just like previously, they limited these students to raising their individual ability, but neglected everyone's ability to work together as a team. Now, there was another huge problem placed in front of them. The only actual combat training for these students, other than their classmates, was the magical beasts in the Heavenly Training Forest. If they were to take part in the interclass competition to win the championship, it was probably impossible, because you are Devil Class's students. Yiqing Luo's gaze was as calm as still water, without a single ripple. Her tone was also calm, but in that tone there was something indistinctly following her voice, scuttling their hearts. Devil Class is Heavenly Academy's disgrace, a waste class in everyone's eyes. If you want to clear your name, to announce to the entire continent or even Nirvana realm that you're not waste, the only way is. It's fine if you don't cry out, but once you cry out, it's shocking. The students' hearts seemed to have been struck by something fiercely as they trembled slightly. Yiqing Luo's expression was indifferent and her tone was very calm. However, for some unknown reason, those 9 simple words caused their hearts to surge with excitement. The reason why I agreed to the interclass competition proposed by Class Monitor Xie is because I believe in you guys. Even I haven't given up on you, so why would you give up on yourselves? What is your dream? What was the target? You just want to be in the limelight during the interclass competition and suppress the other classes to prove that Devil Class isn't trash. What happens after that? Get beaten up by the students from the High Profound class and the Class of Gods and return to the Devil Class? Is this enough to prove his name? No, it doesn't count. If they were defeated by the High Profound class or Class of Gods, their so-called reputation would just be a joke. In the end, he suffered a crushing defeat and left the arena with his tail between his legs. Was it enough to surpass the Intermediate Profound class? No, they were not satisfied. How could he be satisfied? After being a waste for so many years, he finally managed to get into the Heavenly Academy, but was assigned to a waste class where even the masters looked down on him. Just to surpass the Intermediate Profound class. How could he be satisfied? As long as you have a strong belief, believe in your own self-confidence, have your own target, and want to become a strong person who is revered by others, then give me a good answer. Chapter 419. Although the students didn't reply, but their eyes were burning with hope as they were extremely fervent. You still have 8 months' time, and in these 8 months, we will use all means to train you. Yiqing Luo's vision finally fell onto Xiao Jin. As her lips curled into an extremely shallow arc, Xiao Jin understood her meaning as he shrugged his shoulders indifferently, indicating to her to do whatever she wanted. Long Yunjian had arranged Yiqing Luo into the class committee, and in this period of time, Yiqing Luo's ability was obvious to all. Now that Yiqing Luo had started to train everyone, they naturally didn't have any objections. Yiqing Luo then retracted her vision, sweat, and hard work. Then you can exchange for what you want. No matter how tough the future is, how difficult it is, as long as you persevere on, what awaits you will be a sky full of red clouds. When her words fell, Yiqing Luo paused for a moment. The entire training ground was so silent that even the students' hurried breathing could be heard clearly. Kitty Lee was infected by these words, as her cat-like eyes widened, as she stared at Yiqing Luo in adoration. Yiqing Luo seemed to have done it intentionally, as she gave them time to think. Approximately half a quarter of an hour later, Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as she said calmly, "Of course, it's useless to say all these too early. The key is whether class monitor Xie can accept the conditions that I raised. Train well. I'll go have a chat with class monitor." The students lowered their heads, not saying a word. It was until the moment when Yiqing Luo turned around, deafening sounds erupted from her back. "We have confidence. We want to welcome the sky full of red clouds." 10 over young men and young ladies' voices were orderly and loud. In everyone's eyes, they were already disdainful waste. No matter how miserable could it be? No matter how miserable could it be? So what if they failed? They were aiming for first place to take part in the interclass competition. They just wanted to win. Yiqing Luo didn't turn back, as she could feel the passion from those young men and young ladies behind her. She strode towards the small path, as the smile on her lips grew wider and wider. On the way to the class committee room, she met Tong Ziqing, who was sitting by the side in a daze. Yiqing Luo spoke softly as she persuaded her to return back to training and repeated the matter of her preparing devil class to take part in the interclass competition. Although Tong Ziqing's expression was still ugly, she still obediently returned to the training ground. When Yiqing Luo reached the class committee room, she indeed saw Long Yunzhan sitting in front of the square table, bending over the table to write something. Hearing the noise, he didn't even raise his head. "Sit. You know the purpose of my visit?" Yiqing Luo sat opposite him. Long Yunzhan put away his brush and put it aside. "You decide. I have no objections." Ever since the conversation with Yiqing Luo yesterday, Long Yunzhan was no longer disturbed by the entanglement in his heart, as he resumed his usual calm and serene self. Yiqing Luo shrugged her shoulders. "Since that's the case, then I won't be unreasonable and evasive. Tomorrow is a holiday, and for the 3 days of holiday, I decided to set up a mercenary group and let everyone take on missions." This method reminded her of the Silver Plate mercenary group she met in a magical beast forest. If these students were to form a mercenary group and take on missions from the mercenary union, this kind of training in the wild would be much more useful than training in the training grounds. Any kind of training was more effective than actual combat training. Long Yunzhan was startled, his brows slightly furrowed. "Mercenary group?" Yiqing Luo nodded. Long Yunzhan had never thought of bringing these students out of the academy for training. Perhaps it was because he had no memory of this world, and the only sense of security he had was Heavenly Academy. Perhaps he was worried that Devil Class's students' ability would be exposed too early. Chapter 420. Long Yunzhan pondered for a moment and slowly nodded. "If it's you, there shouldn't be a problem." The underlying meaning was that he had agreed to Yiqing Luo's suggestion. However, you will still be the leader. The vice leader and the other positions will be handed over to Xiao, Yi, and the others. Towards her, the backbone of the students was more inclined towards Long Yunzhan. After all, Long Yunzhan was the one who had truly saved their lives. Long Yunzhan had no objections. After discussing with Long Yunzhan, Yiqing Luo headed over to the ectoplasm treasure land. According to what the ghost doctor said, she just had to take another pill tonight and her body would be completely recovered. There were only 3 days of holidays, so the Devil class had to make the best use of their time and not waste any cultivation time. She had to make a full recovery before tomorrow. After entering the ectoplasm treasure land, Yi-Ching Luo extracted her consciousness into the azure dew bracelet. Old Man Song checked Yi-Ching Luo's pulse and couldn't help but nod his head as he sighed silently. Ghost Doctor. She's indeed Ghost Doctor. Hearing this tone, Yi-Ching Luo squinted her eyes. Old Man Song, Senior Ghost Doctor? Old Man Song's hand on Yi-Ching Luo's wrist paused for a moment before he withdrew his hand. I don't know. You don't know him? Did he really think that she had just met him? Previously, when he'd first met the Ghost Doctor in the medicine refining room, Old Man Song had clearly acted as if he didn't recognize her. But ever since he heard the Ghost Doctor's name, his entire person seemed to have changed. In addition to this sentence, it would be strange if they didn't know him. Old Man Song saw Yi-Ching Luo staring at him with a pair of suspicious eyes. He immediately turned his head away in annoyance and lightly landed on the stone bed that was constructed from spiritual qi and laid down. Little girl, take good care of your body and cultivate. Don't ask too many questions. Since Old Man Song wasn't willing to answer, Yi-Ching Luo naturally wouldn't force him to ask. She sat cross-legged, closed her eyes, and began to mobilize the profound energy in her profound jade heart. On one hand, she cultivated, and on the other hand, she used spiritual energy to nourish her internal injuries. What she didn't know was that the moment she closed her eyes, Old Man Song, who originally had his back facing her, turned around. Spiritual qi rose in spirals, and the face under the white beard was dyed with a faint trace of melancholy. Ghost Doctor. Who would have thought that the old man from the herbal sect was actually the Ghost Doctor? Could it be that it was really the will of the heavens? The next day, after Yi-Ching Luo opened her eyes, she stretched her limbs and felt relaxed. There seemed to be a flow of air flowing through her body. She felt light as a feather and didn't feel uncomfortable at all. She tried to circulate the profound qi in her body, but there was no obstruction. Her internal injuries, as well as the scars on her arm, which were caused by Yi-Ching Qian's whip, had completely recovered. After coming out from the spiritual qi treasure land, the students of the Devil class had already packed their belongings and were saying their goodbyes to one another, preparing to go home. The academy was on a holiday, so the last time to seal the academy gates was at noon. Because of this, the students had to pack their things early in the morning and strive to leave the academy before noon. Otherwise, they would be forcefully driven out of the academy by the guards. If one was unlucky and stayed longer than noon, it would be recorded as a minor demerit. By the time Yi-Ching Luo came out, most of the students had already said their goodbyes. On seeing Yi-Ching Luo walking over, Xiao Jin caressed his throat as he gave a light cough. The originally bustling training ground suddenly became incomparably quiet. All the students reflexively stood in line, their backs straight, as they looked at Xiao Jin. This was a habit which they had developed over the years. Yi-Ching Luo slowly walked to Xiao Jin's side, as her charming eyes swept past each and every one of those childish faces. Chapter 421. Devil class students don't have any holidays. Yi-Ching Luo's lips curled slightly as she placed her hands behind her back. Today is your free time, but tomorrow before 5 in the morning, you must report to the Mercenary Association's entrance. Mercenary Association? The students' eyes widened as they more or less guessed Yi-Ching Luo's plan. Your abilities aren't bad, but you don't have any bit of actual combat experience. Yi-Ching Luo ignored the shock in their eyes. Setting up a mercenary group and accepting missions for you to complete is the best way to increase your actual combat experience. Xiao Jin continued. As for the accommodation for these 3 days, I've already arranged it. After you leave the academy, you can move to the mansion in the west of the city. The students immediately cried out. Some were cheering while some were wailing. In the process of completing the mission, there's a possibility that you will meet other mercenary groups and compete with you for the mission items. Yiqing Luo's clear and melodious voice rose slightly. Her voice was gentle, but her aura suppressed the voices of the students. The outside world is not as clean as the academy. By then, if there are mercenary groups snatching items, it will be up to you to decide how you want to do it. The students tensed up. In this way, setting up a mercenary group was not only to complete missions, but also to fight with other mercenary groups. Thinking about it, it made them a little excited. Our aim is not to create trouble, but we are absolutely not afraid of trouble. If you're the one who creates trouble, I will not stop Vice Class Monitor from punishing you. But if anyone dares to offend us, I will be the first to go up. The students clenched their fists as they replied valiantly, yes. It was a holiday, and the academy was obviously livelier than usual. The students who came and went had excited smiles on their faces. The academy's entrance was filled with people. Those elders from the families were all here to welcome their families' hope and glory. Devil Class's students were disguised as ordinary students as they left the academy one by one. Yiqing Luo guessed that during this holiday, the Yi family would not be peaceful. She rejected the few who wanted to leave the academy with her and entrusted Kitty Li to Ni Ruo Pan. She had to admit that Yiqing Luo's intuition was very accurate. Before she reached the courtyard's entrance, she saw Yiqing Qian, who was being crowded by the crowd, smiling shyly, but her eyes were filled with unconcealable delight. A few female students gathered around her, talking about something. Yiqing Qian smiled coquettishly, covering half of her face shyly from time to time. Seeing Yiqing Luo, Yiqing Qian immediately welcomed her with a smile. Seventh sister, let's go back together. Classmate Qing Qian, why did you drag her home with you? Although they are both daughters of the Three Springs sect, one is from the High Profound class, the other is from the Devil class. A female student beside her rolled her eyes in disgust. Exactly. If people were to see us, they would think that we are as useless as the Devil class. I don't even want to admit that such a person is a student of our academy. It's so embarrassing. Every single word around her were praising Yiqing Qian and belittling Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Qian's pair of beautiful eyes that were pretending to be gentle were filled with a complacent smile. But Yiqing Qian still rebuked the few people who were talking. Stop talking, seventh sister is after all my sister. Chapter 422. She had been in the hospital for almost a month and hadn't seen him for a long time. If she had the time to watch Yiqing Qian act, she might as well visit Xiaoyu and care about his health. Yo, student Ye's temper isn't small. Since when did we act? Don't tell me we said something wrong. Isn't the Devil class a waste class? Did you think that you're not waste just because you were in the limelight during the freshman training? Aren't you still being punished by the instructors to the extent that you can't even take part in the training? Devil class is a waste class, and you still want to take part in the interclass competition 8 months later. I wonder what face you have to say such a thing. Heavenly Academy will be destroyed in the hands of you waste sooner or later. One after another, ridiculing voices made the surrounding students cast their gazes over. The position they were standing at was coincidentally not far from the entrance of the courtyard. Those parents who came to fetch their sons and daughters also looked over when they heard these students' words. When their gazes fell onto Yiqing Luo, they were all stunned by this lady's looks. But hearing that she was a student of Devil class, no matter how beautiful her looks were, it was obliterated by the 3 words Devil class. Towards other people's gazes, Yiqing Luo had never put it to heart. Yiqing Luo's gaze sunk slightly as her lips curled into a sneer. She pinched her own hand and twisted her neck. Looks like you all missed the taste of my fist. Hearing the cracking sound of Yiqing Luo's bones, these female students' faces turned pale as they subconsciously hid behind Yiqing Qian. This action made Yiqing Luo scoffed coldly. Even a waste is so afraid. You intermediate profound class students are merely so. Saying that, she walked past these few people and walked out of the courtyard. Yiqing Qian's gentle brows creased slightly as she scolded these useless female students in her heart. Seeing that Yi Qing Luo had already walked out of the courtyard, Yi Qing Qian immediately chased after her. Before she could call out to Yi Qing Luo, she heard a clear voice coming from the front, Qing Qian. Yi Qing Qian's heart trembled as her face revealed a joyful expression as she raised her beautiful eyes and looked towards the direction of the voice. She saw Lung Fenghua standing in front of a luxurious carriage. And in front of the carriage, there was a row of imperial guards. It looked extremely eye-catching and eye-catching. He had gained a lot of face. Yi Qing Qian's face was flushed with shyness as her pair of beautiful eyes were about to burst into tears. The female student beside her covered her chest with both hands and teased, "Classmate Qing Qian, I told you His Royal Highness would come. Look, what an extravagant show. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince is so handsome and powerful. He treats Qing Qian so well that I can't find any fault with him." Student Qing Qian, since His Highness the Crown Prince personally came to the academy to pick you up, does that mean your wedding date is near? Yi Qing Qian's delicate face turned even redder as she stomped her feet. What nonsense are you talking about? Like a little girl, she shyly broke away from the hands of the female students and jogged towards Lung Fenghua. The female students behind her knew that she was in a good mood, so they became bolder and teased her. What nonsense are you talking about? Look at how excited you are to see your sweetheart. Your Highness. Yi Qing Qian trotted forward, a pair of beautiful eyes rippling like spring water. She was panting when her feet seemed to have bumped into something as she suddenly staggered and cried out in surprise. Lung Fenghua stretched out his hand and coincidentally caught Yi Qing Qian in his arms. "Slow down. You're in such a hurry. If others saw you, they would only think that you're the eldest miss of the Yi family who doesn't know etiquette." Although he said so, but the pampering in his tone was obvious. Chapter 423. Lung Fenghua's identity was outstanding, and he had put on such a big show. At the crowded entrance of the academy, the gazes of countless people were basically gathered on Lung Fenghua. There were also many family elders who wanted to greet Lung Fenghua after seeing him, but they were stopped by the imperial guards. At this moment, on seeing Yi Qing Jian and Lung Fenghua's lovey-dovey look, everyone could see it clearly. It was only the academy's holiday, yet Lung Fenghua had set up such a grand display, and even personally welcomed them. Everyone was guessing that the Three Springs sect and the royal family, were they preparing for marriage? Everyone then recalled what the female student had said earlier, and they all nodded in agreement. This was indeed the déjà vu of the wedding day approaching. Yi Qing Qian could feel the envious gazes from the surrounding, feeling that she was like the moon surrounded by stars. Everyone was surrounding her, praising her, envying her. She enjoyed this feeling too much. The depths of Yi Qing Qian's eyes were filled with a complacent expression. However, the expression on her face was still as gentle as a spring breeze. With a voice as gentle as water, she said softly, "Your Highness is busy with official business. In fact, there is no need for you to personally," before he could finish his words. Her soft and delicate body that was stuck close to Lung Fenghua was pushed away by Lung Fenghua. The man's handsome face lowered his eyes to look at her. Yi Qing Qian looked away shyly. Her voice was soft and charming. "Your Highness, you're so annoying. Where is Qing Luo?" These two voices sounded at the same time. Before Yi Qing Qian's tempting ending tone could hook up, she heard Lung Fenghua's question. The smile on his face froze. Seeing Yi Qing Qian not replying for a long time, Lung Fenghua narrowed his eyes and repeated once again, "Qian, where's Qing Luo?" "Your Highness, why are you looking for seventh sister?" Yi Qing Jian quickly regained her senses and suppressed the displeasure in her heart, maintaining the gentle smile on her face. Lung Fenghua curled his thin lips, but his eyes were fixed on a certain spot in the crowd. Suddenly, he raised his voice and raised his voice. "She is this prince's future crown princess. This prince naturally came to take her home." This time round, the smile on Yi Qing Qian's face couldn't be maintained. Her face turned extremely pale in an instant. Her soft body trembled uncontrollably. Lung Fenghua's words were like a ruthless slap on her face. The beating was loud and clear. Lung Fenghua's voice was extremely loud. Like a clap of thunder, it exploded in everyone's ears. The information contained in these words was really huge. Could it be that Lung Fenghua's extravagance today was not to pick up Yi Qingqian, but to pick up the Yi family's seventh young miss who had been a waste for more than 10 years? Only then did everyone remember that Lung Fenghua and the Yi clan's trash seventh young miss were engaged by the monarch himself. Then Yi Qingjian actually ran over like a butterfly the minute she saw Lung Fenghua, and even hooked on his arm. What was she trying to do? Earlier, Yi Qingqian's bunch of lackeys said that the crown prince was a perfect man and the wedding date was nearing. What were they up to? Everyone's gazes towards Yi Qingqian had changed from the original envy to disdain and ridicule. The number one beauty of Three Springs City was quite pretty, and her cultivation talent was strong too. However, his character was so low. Chapter 424. Eldest Miss Yi is indeed hooked up with the Crown Prince. The last time Eldest Miss Yi went to the public square to find trouble with student Yi Qing Luo, student Yi Qing Luo said that there was something going on between them. At that time I didn't think so, but now I've seen it with my own eyes. This atmosphere, this stance, they must have hooked up for more than 3 years. Shoo, lower your voice. If the Crown Prince hears this, we'll be the unlucky ones. They can even do such a thing. Are they afraid that we'll say anything? Look at them. They're already stuck together. The surrounding students muttered softly as they rushed towards Lung Fenghua's direction, pointing and gossiping. After Lung Fenghua raised his voice and said that sentence, he regretted it. But the words had already been said, and there were so many people who heard it, it was impossible to take it back. At this moment, the surrounding people's gazes were like needles staring at him as they described the matter between him and Yi Qingqian in an extremely filthy manner. Although Lung Fenghua and Yi Qingqian had indeed hooked up for many years. However, this was their private matter. Now that it was brought out in front of so many people, he, the crown prince of a country, was completely disgraced. Especially now that the royal family was in turmoil, this stain of his could possibly affect his position as the crown prince. Thinking of this, Lung Fenghua couldn't wait to give himself a big slap. He had always been cautious in his words and actions, and was very clear that any words and actions could possibly be used against him by the enemy. But he had not expected, today, in front of so many people, he had committed such a lowly mistake. The Academy's entrance was not only filled with people from the West Continent, nor were they only from influential families. From all over the world, there were people with all kinds of statuses in Nirvana Realm. Today's topic would definitely spread at an extremely fast speed in the entire Nirvana Realm. Lung Fenghua's heart was crying out in frustration as his gloomy face suddenly pushed Yi Qingqian away. His vision went past Yi Qingqian, looking towards somewhere in the crowd. However, he discovered that the delicate figure that he had been longing for had disappeared without a trace. He intentionally said that he was here to fetch Yi Qing Luo. Intentionally said it to Yi Qing Luo. They weren't too far apart, so no matter how noisy the surroundings were, Yi Qing Luo would definitely have heard what he said. But not only did Yi Qing Luo not take the initiative to look for him, she was nowhere to be seen. The minute he thought that because of her, the surrounding people had suspected the relationship between him and Yi Qingqian, Lung Fenghua's heart was filled with rage. After Yi Qing Luo walked out of the courtyard, she saw Yi Fengyu, who had been standing obediently at the entrance, waiting for her. After nearly 20 days, Yi Fengyu had grown a lot taller, and his body had also become a lot sturdier. Yi Qing Luo's eyes curved. "Little you." She quickly walked forward and grabbed Yi Fengyu's wrist. His wrist was no longer as thin and weak as before. It already had the feel of solid muscle. It had only been 20 days, yet Yi Feng, you had changed so much. It seemed like old man Gue, you did not forget to train Yi Feng you when he was the teacher of the devil class. Sister. When Yi Feng you saw Yi Qing Luo, a smile appeared on his delicate face. He was just about to stretch out his hand to take his sister's luggage, but discovered that Yi Qing Luo's hands were empty. Yi Qing Luo rubbed his head. The dormitory has been destroyed, the things inside can't be kept, and there's nothing valuable inside. Chapter 425. Put your mind on training, don't keep paying attention to my sister. Yi Qing Luo's hand, which was rubbing his head, suddenly increased in strength as she gave him a hard slap. Yi Feng, you hugged his head in pain. I'm just worried about you. Is your sister's hand someone to worry about? The siblings chatted on, totally not paying attention to the situation over at Long Feng Hua's side, so naturally they didn't hear the words that he deliberately raised his volume to tell her. Just as she was preparing to return to Three Springs Sect, a few students suddenly appeared in front. Student Yi, Crown Prince is here to pick you up personally. What are you still doing here? His Highness the Crown Prince treats you so well. Earlier your eldest sister thought that Crown Prince was here specially to pick her up, so she pretended to be shy. Who knew? Crown Prince said he was here to pick you up. Student Yi, hurry over, don't let Crown Prince wait for too long. I can't wait to see Yi Qing Qian's sullen face. She really thinks of herself as a goddess, looking down on other students but still being outdone by her own sister. Still trying to snatch her own sister's fiancé. Only her face is big enough to do such a thing. These female students had obviously been bullied by Yi Qing Qian daily. This was a rare chance for Yi Qing Qian to lose her face in public, so they naturally wouldn't let it go. Hence, one by one, they started to search for Yi Qing Luo. Once they found her, they crowded around her and pushed her into the crowd. Yi Qing Luo was still in a daze when she heard a joyful voice. Qing Luo. She saw Long Feng Hua walking over with an earnest face. His face was filled with his usual refined and warm smile. He walked to Yi Qing Luo's side and stretched out his hand to grab her wrist. His eyes were filled with worry. I heard that you were attacked. Are you injured? After I heard this news, I have been so worried that I couldn't eat or sleep. His voice was gentle and filled with affection, like a young lad who had his first awakening of love, with a trace of bashfulness and a trace of cautiousness. I know today is the school's holiday, so I immediately came to pick you up. Now that I see that you are fine, I can rest assured. If it wasn't for the fact that she knew Long Feng Hua's true colors, Yi Qing Luo would have been deceived by his superb acting skills. Whereas for Yi Qing Jian, who was standing by the side, her entire face was sunken as she stood stiffly by the side with an awkward and embarrassed expression. She pretended to be sentimental as she went up to Long Feng Hua, intentionally flaunted her love. But when Long Feng Hua questioned Yi Qing Luo and even said that he was here to fetch Yi Qing Luo, she was given a tight slap on her face. But now, Long Feng Hua had ignored her and treated Yi Qing Luo with eagerness and gentleness. That was like sprinkling a handful of salt on her wound. Long Feng Hua's eyes were obviously drooling over Yi Qing Luo. Furthermore, after Yi Qing Luo had stirred things up, Long Feng Hua had never mentioned the topic of marrying her again. Yi Qing Qian was trembling with rage. She had given everything to Long Feng Hua. She had given her entire life to Long Feng Hua. But in the end, this was the result. She would never accept this. In his heart, an inexplicable flame of jealousy burned incessantly. Yi Qing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly as she faintly glanced past Yi Qing Jian, who was shooting a hateful gaze at her, as her lips curled into an arc of ridicule. I've troubled your highness. Chapter 426. Banquet. Long Feng Hua had never set up any banquet for her. Yi Qing Qian's body trembled even more violently. The hands hidden in her sleeves clenched tightly into fists. She had to suppress the rage in her heart and maintain her image in front of everyone. Yiqing Qian was angry, but Yiqing Luo smiled charmingly, that pair of long and narrow eyes that could charm all living beings, her eyebrows curved, seducing one's soul. For a moment, Lung Fenghua almost went into a daze. He secretly cursed himself for being blind in the past, to give up such a stunning beauty and insist on a secret meeting with Yiqing Qian. Today, he had almost ruined his reputation. In order to wash away the rumors between him and Yiqing Qian, he wanted to release all his love for Yiqing Luo. Qing Luo, it must be tiring to stand and talk. Let me help you into the car. Lung Fenghua held Yiqing Luo's arm, looking like a 24 filial fiancé. You, let go of my sister. Yi Fengyu's face was ashen. He threw the luggage on the ground and rushed forward, pulling Yiqing Luo behind him. Towards Lung Fenghua, he had no good impression at all. Outsiders might not know, but as a member of the Yi family, he was very clear about it. Lung Fenghua and Yiqing Luo were obviously engaged, but he still wanted to mix around with Yiqing Qian. If it was other women, it was normal for a man to have 3 wives and 4 concubines, especially as the crown prince. There was no lack of women around him. But that woman was Yiqing Qian. Without the woman's soft arm in his hand and that unique fragrance, Lung Fenghua inexplicably felt an emptiness in his heart. He subconsciously stretched out his hand, trying to grab Yiqing Luo's hand. However, Yi Fengyu's back was as straight as a ramrod, not giving him any chance to touch his sister. That protective look made Yiqing Luo couldn't help but laugh out loud. It seemed that the training in the academy not only had his body changed, even his character had changed. If it was in the past, Yi Fengyu would never dare to use such an attitude to face Lung Fenghua. Xiaoyu, you go back first. Yiqing Luo put her hand on Yi Fengyu's shoulder and gently moved his body in front of her. Since the crown prince has invited me, how can I not go? Sister. Yiqing Luo raised her head and squinted at Yi Fengyu. Yi Fengyu stopped speaking, pursed his lips, and moved away unwillingly. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a smile as she gently patted his shoulder. At the same time, Yiqing Luo suppressed her voice to a volume that only the both of them could hear. Find some time in the afternoon to go to the Western Mansion and look for a mister called Xiaojin. Say he's my younger brother and just listen to his arrangements. With that, she had already walked towards Lung Fenghua's direction. When Lung Fenghua heard that Yiqing Luo had actually agreed to the matter of the banquet, his face revealed an ecstatic expression as he immediately stretched out his hand to support Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo acted as though she didn't see him as she flipped over and leapt onto that carriage. Lung Fenghua was startled, but he was not angry. He got on the carriage with a smile. Yiqing Qian gritted her teeth as she clenched her fists tightly, as a vicious look surfaced on her face. That pair of eyes under the long hair stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo as though it was laced with poison. Eldest young miss, Yi seems to be very dissatisfied with His Highness. Lung Fenghua narrowed his eyes. How could he not feel Yiqing Qian's hatred? In order to make the surrounding people believe that there was no relationship between him and Yiqing Qian. At this moment, the expression on Lung Fenghua's face was as cold as ice. His eyes revealed a sliver of indistinct warning. Chapter 427. Only then did Lung Fenghua's expression become slightly better. He gave a cold harumph and flicked his sleeves. I'll have to trouble eldest Miss Yi to send 8th young master Yi back to his residence, and also to inform Patriarch Yi, an old ancestor, that Qing Luo has been brought to the Crown Prince Palace by me. Just a second ago, it was still gentle and sweet. She thought that she would become the object of envy in the eyes of all the students today. But in the next second, reality completely crushed her. She was ordered around by Lung Fenghua in front of everyone. At this moment, although she was filled with anger, she still smiled delicately and said, "Yes, Qianer understands." Lung Fenghua withdrew his gaze and entered the carriage. The group of people left in a mighty manner. The scene was extremely grand. Yi Qingqian's mouth was filled with dust from the clatter of the horse's hooves. She tried her best to restrain her emotions. The long hair on the side of her cheeks scattered, concealing her venomous resentment and gloom. The surrounding students and parents were filled with envy towards Yi Qingluo and praising Lung Fenghua. All of them were certain that Lung Fenghua's action was to let Yi Qingluo officially marry into the family. Classmate Yi is so lucky to have such a good fiancé. If it were me, I would definitely faint from happiness. That's right, that's right. His Highness the Crown Prince is so busy every day, but he's still so concerned about student Yi. He especially found out about the holiday and personally came to pick student Yi up. It's so heartwarming. Of course, although student Yi is placed in the devil class, but her strength is obvious to all. She was beautiful and powerful, so of course the Crown Prince would like her. Unlike some people who shamelessly seduce their future brother-in-law and even think of ways to smear their own sister's name. That's right. If I were the Crown Prince, I would also choose student Yi. The surrounding discussions were in full swing, and although they had intentionally suppressed their voices, but Yi Qingqian could still hear it clearly. She was so angry that her body trembled. Originally, the one who should be envied was her. This glory belonged to her. It was all Yi Qingluo's fault. It was Yi Qingluo, that slut. He took away everything that belonged to her. Just by taking the title of the first wife's daughter, she could become the young lord of the Three Springs sect and be engaged to Lung Fenghua. Why? These were supposed to be hers. A sharp glint flashed past Yi Qingqian's eyes as she speedily chased after the carriage without giving him a glance. Yi Fengyu thought that she was embarrassed and wanted to leave first. He didn't think too much about it and picked up his luggage to go home. Crown Prince Palace. The resplendent and magnificent palace was imposing and magnificent. At this moment, the huge garden was filled with countless exquisite delicacies. Lung Fenghua had indeed chosen a good place. Sitting here for a meal, if the other party was someone else, Yi Qingluo would definitely be able to have a full meal. Lung Fenghua had been staring at Yi Qingluo's face all this while. Seeing that she was surveying the surroundings without any signs of disgust, he secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He and Yi Qingluo were sitting face to face, separated by a long table in the middle. Royal Father had always said that the flowers in His Highness's garden are extremely splendid and colorful. But when Qingluo sits here, she is more beautiful than the flowers, and the surrounding flowers lose their color. Lung Fenghua was holding a wine glass. His black eyes were infatuated, and he didn't even try to hide his love for her. When Yi Qingluo heard that, she scoffed lightly as her long and narrow eyes rippled with a trace of cold smile. "Oh, Your Highness is questioning the monarch's foresight?" "No, it's not that." Lung Fenghua choked as his expression turned embarrassed. His main point was obviously to praise Yi Qingluo for being more beautiful than the flowers. Why did Yi Qingluo place the main point on the first half of the sentence? Chapter 428. Lung Fenghua smiled calmly and revealed a trace of flattery. "Qingluo is exceptionally intelligent. This Highness knows that my thoughts can't be hidden from you." Yi Qingluo rolled her eyes and scoffed. Don't say it, as if she knew him very well. She didn't have the leisure to guess Lung Fenghua's thoughts. It was just that Lung Fenghua's performance was too obvious. Lung Fenghua raised his wine glass towards Yi Qingluo. "Since Qingluo has already come straight to the point, then I shall not beat around the bush." He downed the wine in his cup in one gulp. His actions were noble and elegant like a prince of a country. Only, after he placed down the wine cup, his gaze towards Yi Qingluo became earnest again. That day in the Magic Beast Forest, Qingluo seemed to be able to tame mirage beasts and even ride on the mirage beast's back. Is there any special method? As expected, long ago, when Lung Fenghua raised the invitation, Yi Qingluo had already guessed his motive. She had more or less heard about the recent turmoil in the royal family. Although Lung Fenghua had always been the crown prince since he was born, his foundation was really not solid. in the royal family, as long as there was evidence to prove that he wasn't the best candidate, then he would be deposed. Lung Feng Hua was originally outstanding because of his cultivation talent. But now, no matter how hard he tried, he was unable to touch the barrier to break through. Especially recently, because of Yi Qing Luo's matter, it caused his reputation to not be good. Lung Feng Hua was naturally very anxious. The only way was to break through to the Earth Profound realm as soon as possible and become the first prince to step into the Earth Profound realm. His position as the Crown Prince would be secure. The last time Lung Feng Hua appeared in the Magic Beast Forest, it was to find the magic crystal gems he wanted to break through. In the end, Yi Qing Luo appeared and messed up all the plans. If Lung Feng Hua wanted to advance, he would definitely come to find her. Qing Luo, if you're able to teach this highness the ability to tame mirage beasts, this highness promises you that the future empress of the West Continent will definitely be you. Lung Feng Hua saw that she didn't reply for a long time, and his heart became anxious, and he immediately opened up a new condition. If he could secure the position of Crown Prince, Yi Qing Luo would also be able to secure the position of Crown Prince's imperial concubine. In future, when he succeeded the throne, he would immediately confer Yi Qing Luo as his empress. He was only below one person and above tens of thousands. He believed that no woman in the world could escape from such a promise. However, after Lung Feng Hua said these words, Yi Qing Luo still held on to a smile which didn't look like a smile and didn't make a sound. The more she did not speak, the more Lung Feng Hua's heart was beating like a drum. Now that he had a request for Yi Qing Luo's help, he didn't dare to display his crown prince's attitude. Lung Feng Hua was very clear that Yi Qing Luo was not an obedient lady. If the hard way didn't work, then he would use the soft way. Adding on to the sufficient benefits, an intelligent lady like Yi Qing Luo would definitely make the best choice. Lung Feng Hua poured another cup of wine. Qing Luo, consider it carefully. This highness really likes you. In the future, you will also be this highness' wife. If you help this highness now, you are also helping yourself. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes slightly as an enchanting ray of light flashed past. She put her index finger on her lips and covered her mouth as she chuckled. If eldest sister heard what your highness said to me, how sad would she be? I have nothing to do with eldest Missy. Lung Feng Hua immediately shook his head as he spoke righteously. Since this highness is your fiancée, then eldest Missy is also this highness' future sister. No matter how lustful this highness is, I will absolutely not do such a rude thing. Chapter 429. This tone was filled with concern, mixed with traces of affection. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes as she looked at him with a faint smile. Lung Feng Hua's face was filled with righteousness, as though this kind of slander had caused him great harm. Yi Qing Luo laughed coldly in her heart and was about to open her mouth when her vision suddenly caught a slender figure. Yi Qing Qian followed along. Most likely, she had heard everything that Lung Feng Hua had said just now. She wondered how Yi Qing Qian would feel when she heard the man whom she loved dearly slandered her because of another woman. Yi Qing Luo smiled, but didn't say a word. Lung Feng Hua persisted. Qing Luo, this highness is your fiancé. You should believe in this highness. Saying that, he observed Yi Qing Luo's expression and boldly stretched out his hand, trying to hold Yi Qing Luo's hand. Just as his hand stretched out, Yi Qing Luo's body leaned backwards and the hand which was placed on the table slid on her lap. One hand brushed the long hair by the side of her face, curling it on her fingertips as she gave a charming smile. If I said that I don't have any special method to subdue mirage beasts, will your highness still say these words? This highness's heart has always only had you. Lung Feng Hua's eyes were filled with sincerity. If you don't believe me, after this highness breaks through to Earth Profound stage, this highness will immediately propose marriage to Three Springs sect to marry you. Yi Qing Luo smiled. Her fiery red lips curled into a teasing smile. That radiant and beautiful face, those long and narrow eyes were curved, displaying an enchanting charm. This smile had mesmerized Lung Fenghua's eyes, captivated his heart. This made Lung Fenghua full of confidence as he raised his wine cup, raising it towards Yiqing Luo. This highness will definitely let you see this highness's sincerity towards you. Yiqing Luo's jade fingers held the wine cup in front of her as she shook it gently. "Marry me?" The lady's enchanting voice was like pearls falling onto a jade plate, crisp and clear. Lung Fenghua's eyes lit up, indeed facing power and status. No lady could escape from this temptation. He immediately nodded and smiled warmly. "Yes, I will marry you and make you my only crown princess. You will be the future emperor-empress." Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as she gave a charming smile. But she just smiled and didn't say anything. She didn't respond to him. Lung Fenghua didn't rush her, as he eagerly helped Yiqing Luo to arrange the dishes and raised his wine cup to toast Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes were suffused with a trace of destructive radiance. Her jade fingers that were hooked around the wine cup gently caressed the wine cup, immediately pasted it on her pink lips, and drank the wine into her mouth. Lung Fenghua's eyes suddenly lit up. Although he concealed his expression very well, the uncontrollable smile on his face revealed his current mood. Yiqing Luo pretended not to see his strange emotions and put down the wine cup. "Just for a way to tame mirage beasts, your highness has sacrificed yourself." Her voice was filled with mockery. The corner of his mouth curled up into a smile full of ridicule. "But your highness, have you forgotten that I had already divorced your highness when you and Big Sister were secretly having an affair and trying to break off the engagement?" The smile on Lung Fenghua's face froze. Yiqing Luo slowly stood up. Her devastatingly beautiful face held a dazzling smile. "Your highness, are you trying to enjoy the bliss of having two wives? But your highness should think carefully on how to explain to Big Sister." Saying that, her vision swept directly towards a corner, as her lips twitched with a smile which didn't look like a smile. "What do you mean?" Lung Fenghua's expression tightened as he followed Yiqing Luo's gaze. Chapter 430. "Qing Luo, you can't leave." Lung Fenghua immediately stood up and wanted to chase after her. But before he could straighten his body and raise his hand, his entire body went limp as though he had no energy at all. A surge of raging fire was burning within his body. He fell onto the long table, and half of his body had already covered the exquisite delicacies on the long table. His body was stained with quite a bit of soup, but he didn't even have the energy to move. His entire body was burning with that burning feeling. You must be wondering what on earth is going on. Yiqing Luo stopped in her tracks as she looked down at Lung Fenghua, who was sprawled on the table. Her smile was still as bright as a flower. The coldness amidst the laughter was like frost. Lung Fenghua's face was filled with astonishment as his trembling finger pointed at Yiqing Luo. "You didn't?" Curious why I had obviously drunk this cup of wine, but the one who was drugged is you? Yiqing Luo directly repeated Lung Fenghua's question. Lung Fenghua blinked his eyes. His entire face was flushed red from the aphrodisiac, and his entire body was boiling hot as sweat dripped down. Yiqing Luo laughed coldly in her heart. Did he really treat her as an idiot? A lone man and woman, set up in the garden, and there wasn't a single attendant or maid to serve them. How could she not see through Lung Fenghua's motive? What's done cannot be undone. That would depend on whether he had the ability to cook the rice or not. Yiqing Luo laughed coldly as her fingertips hooked onto that wine cup on the table and shook out a handful of medicinal powder. Following that, she picked up the wine cup which Lung Fenghua had drunk several times earlier and flicked her fingers around the rim of the cup. Around the rim of the cup, a circle of jet black immediately appeared. Lung Fenghua's face flushed red as his eyes widened in disbelief. Yiqing Luo had obviously not touched his wine cup, and he had been staring at her. How'd she do it? This lady emphasizes on reciprocity, and I will return you double the amount. Don't worry, your antidote will be here soon. Yiqing Luo gave a low laugh as she bent down slightly as though she was looking at an ant that was about to die. Perhaps it was because his entire body was drugged. Lung Fenghua could clearly sense that the lady's fragrance had entered his nose. The burning sensation in his body felt like it was about to explode. Not knowing where the energy came from, he suddenly stood up and pounced towards Yiqing Luo's direction. This pounce caused his abdomen to receive a vicious kick from Yiqing Luo. Lung Fenghua was caught off guard by this kick, and he was sent flying. Coincidentally, he bumped into the rockery in the corner. Lung Fenghua landed heavily on the ground. He felt a sharp pain in his chest and coughed out blood. However, this pain did not quell the raging fire in his body. A woman in green and white walked out from behind the rockery. She stared coldly at the direction where Yiqing Luo left. Her facial features were sinister and terrifying. What trick was Yiqing Luo playing? He actually gave Lung Fenghua to her, just like that? Yiqing Qian's brows creased tightly, unable to understand Yiqing Luo's actions. She lowered her head and stared at Lung Fenghua, who was lying by her feet. His face flushed red as his hands kept on tearing off his clothes. Thinking of how he had fawned over Yiqing Luo earlier, a glint of hatred surfaced in her eyes. He should have known about Lung Fenghua's fickleness. However, in this scene, her heart was moved by Lung Fenghua. She had obviously gotten close to Lung Fenghua in order to walk up to a higher position, not wanting to live under someone else. But this heart had uncontrollably fallen in love with Lung Fenghua. Looking at Lung Fenghua's wriggling body, his face filled with pain, she couldn't bear it. She slowly squatted down and took out a handkerchief from her bosom, helping Lung Fenghua to wipe his sweat. Bear with it for a while. I'll get someone to carry you to the bedroom. Only, when her hand had just touched Lung Fenghua, her wrist instantly tightened, and she had been forcefully pressed on the ground by Lung Fenghua. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.